I think they already started a very, very bad note by picking up TaZ because like HooXi never really had an input. Like I talked to him as well, and management asked him for his input and he wanted a different coach. And in the end, while we were in bootcamp, TaZ was here. Again, if for me, your ITL and your coach need to have a good bond, and like your ITL has to decide. Like you need to trust him and let him decide, not management decide. Like this was the first bad thing.
Sell in-game items at the best prices in just a couple of clicks. We are the biggest instant sell service for in-game items like Counter-Strike 2, Dota 2, and Rust. Easy selling process and instant withdrawal of funds to the most popular payment methods. More than 140,000 deals and 50,000 active sellers every month. Use promo code HLTV5 and get a 5% bonus on the sale of your skins. Skin Place. Sell items now.
It was more than a game. It was everything. Every single emotion on display. Not a moment missed. This was CSGO through the lens.
Hello and welcome to HLTV Confirmed, the longest running CSGO podcast, CS2 podcast even, proudly brought to you by Anthros and Skin Place. On today's episode, we'll be diving deep into the hottest topic of the week, month, potentially even the year, m0NESY going from G2 to Falcons. For that, we are joined by Striker, obviously editor-in-chief of HLTV, Striker, caster and analyst. Bleh. Something else maybe that we should add to that?
I'm good with that.
Okay, great. Yeah. And most importantly, Swani, former G2 coach and analyst at different times, and also analyst for a bunch of different teams. So welcome, guys. How are you feeling? Starting with Swani, really glad to have you here on the podcast.
Thank you. First of all, thanks for the invite. I'm feeling very good. Relieved that I'm not really involved in the situation anymore and what's going on. So yeah, I'm feeling good watching from the outside.
Nice. Obviously, Chad's not here. He will be joining us for the next episode. I believe he's currently in the Australian bushes or something, exploring with Rushley. We're getting some updates here and there. We know he's alive, doing well. I think he needs a little mental reset after everything that's been happening, especially with JKS and Liquid, and the aftermath of that. He really, I feel like, left a toll on our dear Chad. So let's just dive into what we're here to talk about. But for that, just a slight intro on you, Swani. What the hell are you doing since you just quit Counter-Strike out of nowhere?
After I quit World Finals 2023, I took 1 year off to relax, find myself as well, know what I want to do. And then in January, I started working for Amazon as a data analyst, working in data again and doing a lot of stuff that I used to do before. Leading a team and working on projects, working on shifts and all that fun stuff in a company that I actually started to like, because I was a bit scared as well of an American company. But actually they're doing great stuff and I get to enjoy myself and do what I like.
Nice. I mean, I see you on the Reddits quite often, sometimes on Twitter, but I feel like you're probably the most active Reddit user that I know that actually has, mental cells, brain functioning and everything, because I know some users on Reddit, not the smartest, unfortunately, but I see your comments, I'm like, this guy is actually engaging here consistently. So what's that about?
I think I always wanted to engage also when I was still a coach. I always wanted to give back to the people that actually support us, because I think a lot of people take it for granted, but I never really did it because for me it was always something really nice, and if I can give some insights on topics that people are like guessing about and putting very wide guesses out sometimes, I think it's good to sometimes also give some insights that are obviously not giving away too much.
Yeah, I mean that's why you're here today. So I guess we're gonna have a few of those. Blay, how you been? Missed you in Bucharest.
Yeah,
Took your spot, so I guess
it's
can't
fine.
really
It's fine.
complain.
Just stealing my spot right there casually. No, it's been just chilling, man. Just take a bit of a sabbatical, kind of, ready to get back into the groove of things. But just enjoying watching CS, especially major season heating up right now. I'm literally keeping an eye on this Astralis game, and not looking good for Big. I'll just say that.
It is what it is. Astralis hate watchers. Had a good day today overall. There's been some good days in the past few days, but we'll see 2 more games. This game and 2 more potentially. We'll see. Striker, just before we jump into Skinionaire, want to start with Skinionaire this time, just to kind of get out of the way and also like warm up our guests. How are you feeling after a very, very interesting week, I would say?
It's actually not been. A lot of that happened we already knew. So as much as it's been interesting, it has been very anticipated. So I feel like it's just kind of getting it out there finally, and I'm just glad that it happened pretty fast compared to some of these situations that happen with like NiKo. We're expecting it for like months in advance and all that stuff, and it just happens delayed. So this time we actually got to learn about everything pretty fast.
Nice. So as I said, you're gonna start warm up with a Skinionaire. Skinionaire is themed into questions about m0NESY and degster. That's very, very interesting. I think we can have both of you kind of team up, work together on figuring out these questions, and then we'll jump into the whole G2 and Falcons m0NESY NiKo situation. I just don't have the link, so Lucas, I don't know if you have it handy, because I will not be able to read. I could. Thank you. Okay, so as you all know, just write Skin Plays in chat for a chance to win the prizes. Depending on how many they get correct, how many answers they get correct, we'll give a bigger skin out, more worthy skin out. So let's start with question number 1. Okay, I need to full screen this. Who of the 2 has at least once publicly referred to NiKo as brother? Was it degster, m0NESY, or both? Of course.
I want to give this one to Swani.
m0NESY, of course, but
I think it's both.
I probably both, yeah, because degster also said in like farewell tweet where he posted about everyone. I think he said both.
I think degster just calls everyone brother in public, so I think the safe.
Say both as well.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna lock this in. Can I click this? Okay, nice.
Did you do this or did Dimitri?
This is Dimitri, and pretty much all the questions follow a very similar pattern, as you will figure it out. So question number 2. Who has more MVPs in 2025? degster, m0NESY, or tied?
Up to you, Blay. You're involved in this.
Degster, he just literally won right now, and for m0NESY, have they won anything so far this year? No. I think it's just degster.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. Lock it in.
So.
Locking in degster, and the answer is degster. Let's go. First MVP of his career, first trophy. Question number 3. Which of the 2 has the best major result? degster, m0NESY, or tied?
Did Ilya play Stockholm with us? I don't think so, right?
No.
He wasn't in Stockholm
He
then.
came in Kato.
No, that was m0NESY copying.
And we saw him at the finals.
What a throwback, man.
Quarterfinals in a major for m0NESY, and for degster...
Degster never met quarters, right?
He reached playoffs. Spirit.
He wasn't Spirit.
He was in Spirit. Spirit had that game with FaZe. We can't forget that. Was it quarters? Somehows.
If it says tied, it's usually tied, right?
He solved it. Tied.
You're going for tied?
I would go for tied.
Okay, let's go for tied.
Nice.
I don't even know who's looking at it. But yes, it is correct. Tied. They both made semifinals. FaZe,
m0NESY made Shanghai semifinals, bro.
Oh my god, true.
You guys forgot about Shanghai?
No, I said m0NESY did make the Shanghai semifinals. G2 made one, yeah.
There you go. Definitely heard you say
and
that.
And Antwerp
Thanks,
for
Prof.
Spirit, right? Was degster. I think semis, right?
Yeah.
Yes, with FaZe.
That was a banger game. That's two.
Yeah.
Magic says. Okay, question number 4. does one of these two have a 15% higher sniper kill percentage than the other? Yes, degster. Yes, m0NESY. Or both are at about 50%.
I mean, Ilya is rifling a lot. He definitely doesn't have more than 15% in degster. I would say both are at 50% because I think degster was rifling as well.
I'd go with that too.
Yeah, both are at 50, I would say.
Let's lock it in. Yeah, that's correct. Honestly, I would give degster more.
Degster, yeah.
Yeah, I would expect degster to have slightly more, but
more, but not 15%.
That's true.
Definitely more than that.
Yeah, I mean, m0NESY is usually very high out of all the, we're saying how nobody is like a big primary opera anymore. Everybody's hypering a lot more, but m0NESY is just still quite high.
And the final question: can you go perfect, guys? Let's see. Who was the first to join an English-speaking team? One did it 6 months earlier than the other. Was it degster or m0NESY?
m0NESY, right?
Has to be m0NESY.
Yeah, I mean, he joined KATO 2022.
2022, yeah.
Yeah, and wait, did degster play any other team before that?
Just OG, right?
OG's later. Before was Spirit. Did he play in any other team before Spirit?
But Spirit wasn't English speaking, that's what I mean.
Yeah, but I'm saying before Spirit. That's a big question.
Honestly, I have no idea where he played.
It was in Espada.
Oh yeah, Espada.
But Espada is not English speaking. It has to be m0NESY.
It has to be m0NESY. Yeah.
Picking m0NESY. Correct.
Oh shit. Perfect.
Easy.
Amazing job, guys. $50 going to a lucky Twitch chat user, which
You're
will
welcome,
be
Twitch.
revealed to me in a dream.
Degster had that like Lisbon stand-in stint for OG in like May or something, and then he joined a month later or something or whatever.
Yeah,
for
that
OG,
was for Mantu, right?
Yeah,
that was post Antwerp, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
yeah. So the Dr. Mad one, you'll be reached out to by our people at some point. Just check your Twitch whispers. I think that's what the children call it. The youth call it these days.
The Dr. Mad one. Let's go.
Okay. So I think I'd like to start with especially in the last 2 years of G2, a lot of things happened. So I think it's worth kind of going over them and seeing, Swani, from your perspective and also from our perspective as journalists and like commentators and everything, what went down and how did they end up in this situation. But before I jump into that, I want to just ask everyone a simple question. Do you think that losing NiKo and m0NESY was inevitable for G2?
Yeah.
I mean, okay. At what point do you think, are you asking that question? Or
I guess that makes a difference, but you can give just your pitch on it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll go first. I don't think it was inevitable per se. I just feel like, again, it depends on the timeline, right? With Snax coming and everything. I think the Mongolz edition and how they were kind of clicking into place was looking really good. I was actually excited about it, but I do feel maybe if looking from the outside, if G2 had made a change, had maybe, it could be in the coaching side of things, could be in the IGLing side of things. I don't know if they kept NiKo a little bit happier there and they realized that this is the lineup that could win majors, could win championships consistently. I don't think the change would necessarily have happened. So I don't think it was inevitable, but I felt like as certain amount of time elapsed, I guess the bag was a little bit more enticing, I guess.
For me, I was going to say it was I mean, nothing's inevitable. I think besides what G2 could have done as an organization, getting them a better IGL or a better player or a better coach at some point or whatever it would be, had they won one of the majors or whatever like that, had they just had that one big peak, would they both really have left? If NiKo actually got that goal, that's been something he's been going after for such a long time. They get that major win. I feel like, both possibly stay, or they even get some money, to get somebody better down the line or whatever it is, that helps NiKo stay in the end. So I feel like, with just a couple of results going another way, I think things can change pretty fast.
Yeah. Why do you think no, Swani?
I think that just judging by the way that it went down, it was inevitable. But as we said, if other things happen, then of course,
as they say, if my
I mean, at the
grandma
end, it
had
was
wheels,
Yeah.
it'd be a bicycle.
Yeah.
Let's rewind then, because it was kind of a experience going down the memory lane and looking at the results and the rosters that G2 had over the year. Obviously, NiKo was there for a long time. Hunter was there for even longer time. Like NiKo joined end of pandemic 2020, like kind of in 2020, and then m0NESY signing start of 22, right? They had some different results. They're not really finding the form with Alexi B and Jack's lineup. Towards the end, they may halfway through the year, JKS and HooXi come in. They have some mixed results. Ultimately, they failed to make the Rio Major, which is a huge indictment for the roster that was, like, failing at the RMR. But the lineup sticks together, and the only thing that actually changes is the management side of G2 kind of on the turn of the year. That is with you, Swani, taking over as the coach, and Petsa, he was at the time he was like esports general European team manager or something.
Yeah.
And then he became general manager of the Counter-Strike team. So that's great point to like pull you in. What was this period like? You were an analyst before, you're giving this coach role. How did the team feel at that time?
I mean, it was super, super chaotic because nobody actually knew that Xtaz and Nyak were about to leave. Like, it also hit us very unexpectedly. And then from one day to the other, it was like, hey, you're the coach now, basically. And we kind of took the last World Finals as a trial, I would say, which obviously worked out pretty well. Because this was like my first tournament as a real coach. Before, I also did one time IEM Winter, where Malik was leaving, and we got Xtaz in January in the following year. I did like this tournament where we also had Kenny and stuff, but I had no idea what to do as a coach behind him. So I was just basically there. And yeah, like the period was just very chaotic. I didn't know what to do exactly, and all my responsibilities shifted from one day to the other. Like, you're an assistant coach, you are just following tasks basically, and all of a sudden you are the coach, and like, I never really wanted it as well, like, it was never my highest goal to become a coach at some point. But yeah, then I became the coach, and we had a boot camp as well before World Finals, and then we went to World Finals, and I mean, it worked out pretty well, and the players said they would like to keep me for the year, so I think that worked out pretty well.
I mean, to win your first tournament together, or whatever it was, maybe not the first one, but one of your first ones, I guess that's a pretty good resume to have.
Yeah, that was good. But yeah, I think it was also for me very easy to know what they were lacking, because after the Rio Major, it just wasn't like a real team. It was a lot of disconnection. It wasn't really about strats. It wasn't about tactics, but I just needed to glue them back together, kind of what like Robin was for FaZe. I think he also didn't do a lot of tactical stuff, but he was the glue. And I think sometimes in a team, you need this a lot more at certain points than have some tactical prowess, because once you're on the same page, the tactical aspect will come by itself, I would say, because you start working together more, you start trusting each other more, and it's a lot easier to work on tactics. So since I knew them for like 4 years, especially NiKo and Hunter, who I worked with for like 4 years, I knew exactly what I needed to do, and that I didn't need to push myself in like the spotlight too much at the start, but just make sure that everyone is on the same page. And I think this approach at the start worked really well, because afterwards I had like the whole player break to work on tactical stuff.
I mean, when it comes to, like you said, like not everyone being on the same page, right? Who do you think was, or who was actually the emotional leader, I guess, for the team at that point in time?
I mean, a lot was NiKo and HooXi as well, but for HooXi it was really hard at the start because he never led an international team as well. And it's like a lot of people don't see that every culture is super different. Like, Serbs are very direct, and for him it was sometimes also hard to get direct feedback like NiKo or Hunter would do, because in the Danish scene he was playing with his friends for a long time in Copenhagen Flames, and they knew how to talk to each other, and then he came into us, he didn't know how to give feedback, he didn't really know how to receive feedback, so it was a lot of learning period for him as well. But I think he managed it pretty well. But I would definitely say like NiKo and HooXi were always the loudest voices and the leaders.
So just from your perspective and the team's perspective, the goals for that lineup, I presume, were becoming number one in the world, winning majors. That was like what was set for you for 2023. Correct me if I'm wrong.
mean, we didn't really do this because that's what I did in the past, right? They were always in the past, we would sit around on the table and say, hey, this is our goal for this tournament, for that tournament. But for me, it was more that we could find a way to treat every tournament the same. I know it's easier to say you cannot treat Malta EPL the same as like a major. But I feel like as soon as we got into this groove where we would, especially in Cologne, where we would take every day the same, like we would have the same routines, we would have everything the same. So the final doesn't feel bigger than a group stage game, you know? I feel like this was the biggest part because in the past you could see that in the finals, G2 got very nervous. They didn't play the same way they would before. And to get them to this point mentally, also Edward helped us a lot to treat every day exactly the same routine. So yeah, as I said, the final doesn't feel bigger. I feel like this was very, very important for us because I knew the guys would shoot. They know how to shoot. They just need like those 5% mentally to get over the edge. And as soon as we won the first tournament, I knew, okay, this is the start of something good because as soon as you get the feeling of knowing that you can win a final, this is where everything goes smoothly, I feel like.
I mean, just looking at the results here, right? Just very quickly of this year, just after the World Final, which you guys won, it was a very impressive run overall, right? Like, yeah, look at the wins you had, some of the more prestige events out there, but then Blast was obviously a disappointment, right? I do wonder because with this line, I'm looking at the the standings you have, winning multiple big events, top 4, multiple top events as well. How much did the Blast event really sting, right? Obviously, it's a major, it has a, but did it really play? Did it have any trickle-down effect in the changes taking place later?
I think so, yes, because this lineup was built to win a major, and we failed. I failed as well, because I fucked up the major, the V2 against fnatic, where we went to Vertigo as a decide instead of Nuke.
Oh, God, yeah.
It was my bad, because if you can decide between Vertigo and Nuke, when you have NiKo as an outside player, you should always go for Nuke, right? So, yeah, but that was also my fault. But yeah, this also started to trickle down and people started losing trust a bit. So yeah, it definitely played a part.
I mean, you kind of mentioned, the results of that year, the results of the year before. I mean, before that Blast World Finals, G2 has practically never won a relevant CS event, dating back to like the French lineup they have in 2017, right? And they did reach, a bunch of finals in 2021. There's like a bunch of second places. There's Katowice at the start of 22 as well, final that they lost super close to FaZe. So that did kind of, you have to look back at all of G2's lineups. That was probably the most successful lineup they ever had. And this is why a lot of people are now looking back, at JKS and HooXi lineup and being like, oh, they should have done something differently. Why did they kick JKS? Why was HooXi removed and stuff like this? So I think that's where we need to continue and be like, because I still don't understand. And I don't think, if I don't understand that someone that has like a lot of insider info, then I think the viewers are even more confused as to why JKS was ultimately removed, even though there's a lot of like side comments, insinuations in terms of like, he's not a toxic guy, but he's not the most like socially outgoing, communicative person. And that's the only thing that was kind of mentioned. Can you share a bit more on this?
I mean, you have to look at the bigger picture as well, because after Sydney, where everything started, was a very, very weird situation for everyone. But we already had a lot of talks with Justin before, and because in like team talks or stuff, it was always very hard to get a lot of information out of him. You really had to push him. You had to just get him out of his shell, which sometimes for other teammates can be hard, especially if you sit next to a guy who is always very calm, and you are sitting next to him, and the guy sitting next to him is very emotional, hypes him up if he does something good, but he never gets something in return. You know what I mean? Like you always say, nice round, and you never get anything back in return. Then if things are not working out, it hits 10 times harder. Because whenever we won, it was like putting a band-aid on things, Like, okay, we won, but yeah, we're just pushing the problem a bit further because we were working on this problem for a long time. But it never really got better. And at some point, especially after Sydney, when when the NiKo rumor started, and then also Hunter had some offers, and then Ilya had some offers and wanted to go, and we were just thinking that we needed to restructure in a way that we would compensate for the loss of NiKo's voice. And we didn't think, or at the time we didn't think that like one voice could cover NiKo's input. So we wanted to change 2 guys, which in hindsight was obviously a mistake, because I feel like the decision was rushed and we didn't take enough time, because we should have definitely taken more time to find a better solution for replacing JKs. But yeah, that's a management decision, because in the end, the management is making all those decisions, and this is where we ended up.
I mean, when it comes to the management decisions, and this is always the the biggest problem or issue everyone seems to find when it comes to player changes. I'm assuming that there would have been feedback from the team or individuals in the team to the management for them to even consider making changes or not, right? So when you say the management change, is it like 100% solely on them, or has there been input from maybe a couple of members in the team who, kind of pushed them in that direction?
I mean, there was input, but in the end, it didn't really change their mind, right? So they were set on something, and I wasn't really much to convince them. But I mean, I can understand them a bit, because you cannot really rely on input of people who you expect to leave, Like you expected NiKo to leave, you expected Hunter to leave, like, can you really consider their input in the end?
Was that an actual reality where Hunter could have left at that point?
I mean, this was the rumors at the time, right? Hunter to Vitality was a conversation that was happening. Ilya, m0NESY to Cloud9. This was a very touchy subject for G2. We made some funny under picture comment and got a lot of flack from it. Because I think it was like a handshake between like Perfecto and m0NESY, and someone wrote something funny. And obviously that bothered G2, because it was like a reality that it could happen. And then the NiKo, obviously, to Falcons, these 2 things were rumored at the same time.
And then Hunter would have left, but Hunter would have left if NiKo would have left. That's what he told us. Mm-hmm. So in the end, we were really in limbo. Like from one day to the other, we didn't know who would be in our lineup. So I can understand management at some point, because you cannot, like, how do you consider the input of people who are on the verge of leaving,
Yeah, right. So, I mean, you basically have a broken lineup then. Like, you have a core that's leaving at that point then, because that's like, okay, let's say m0NESY is not, because we know that G2 have been very clear about blocking every move that was possible. He even said
this,
right?
in the podcast that he did with.
Right. I mean, we've heard this over the last year and a half or so, over and over, right? Where he had a wish to leave or whatever, and then like every time he wanted to go somewhere, G2 just blocked it until the latest move to Falcons, right? So I mean, at that point, you have a m0NESY who wants to leave. You have NiKo and Hunter leaving, and like, who do you ask? Like, who do you have left even? Like at that point, you can ask for input, And
like every day was different. Like I one day I go to sleep, I have NiKo and Hunter on my team. The next day I'm not sure who do I have on the team. Like I can understand the community that they want players to have input, but if the players have a desire to leave, like it's also hard for management to consider the inputs. So I can understand it was a tough job for them.
I saw a meme on Instagram today. It was something like, I put in my 2 weeks notice and then got an email for Q2 planning. And there's just a dude like chilling in a park, doing a little picnic. Like he doesn't give a fuck. Like it's not really, even if he would give some advice, it wouldn't, maybe it's not coming from, the deepest thinking and everything, which is, that's a really messed up situation overall. But then, as much as you can feel for the management at that time, your solution is, let's sign Nexa. Like, no disrespect to Nexa, love him, lovely guy, but he was, I don't see which of all of these problems signing Nexa actually solves, right? That this is the confusion. And then also, aren't you as a coach at least someone that, I'm actually shocked that you're not really, okay, maybe you don't consider players that are leaving, but you are the coach that is here, and you're not considered for, who you should pick?
I mean, I didn't really have an input, to be honest. I could say as well feedback, but I didn't really have a say in the end. So that's also something that I didn't like too much. But from Nexa,
were you also considering leaving at that point? Because I mean, you ended up leaving like a month later, right after all this moves. So
this was one of the last straws that I had, because I also didn't believe in the lineup. We struggled in CS2. Like NiKo also took a long time to adjust, right? Like we struggled big time in the start, and I honestly just didn't believe in the lineup. And we expected Nexa to talk a lot more. That's one of the main reasons we picked him, right? Because he was IGL before. We wanted to replace a bigger voice and have a bigger second voice. But in the end, we also got a quiet guy who didn't talk too much. So I don't know, everything went bad. And this was really the downfall. Also for me, it killed my motivation big time.
So just to clarify, when you say management, who is the management of G2? Like, what does that involved? I mean,
Yuli, the esports manager, and Petsa, obviously.
Okay. Just wanted to, I don't know, for people, maybe are familiar with people, maybe not. And, I think like Petsa is very well known to the CS community, but...
it's just too well known at this point, I think he would say.
Yeah. Okay, so then... I mean, this kind of puts a lot of things in perspective in terms of like you leaving makes perfect sense. Not only are you like you're struggling and you see some issues and you're like, okay, maybe we need to make a change. And honestly, at that point, that lineup of those 5 players with JKS and HooXi have been going on for over a year. You won some tournaments. You won Cologne and Katowice.
Massive.
That year, you won also the first big tournament for like international G2 shortly before the start of the year, but you failed, at the majors. You failed before you failed to qualify for the majors. And I think that's a normal time to consider changes. I don't think that's weird, even though like everything kind of seems to make sense. I think at the time, most people are calling for HooXi's head, mainly because of like just individual performance. So do you think at that time, like part of all of these players wanting to leave, was it because of, HooXi? Was it because of JKS? Or was it just in general the team not functioning and no one knowing what the solution is?
I think it was just a NiKo domino effect. It didn't really have anything to do about HooXi or Justin, because actually everyone, like, that's something special that we liked each other so much, and that's what I think the synergy was so good. Like, we did everything also out of game together. Like, I don't know, like I stayed together in Sydney with Justin 2 days earlier than anyone else, and HooXi as well. Like, we didn't dislike each other or anything, and I think that was part of the reason why we were so good. So it didn't have anything to do with HooXi or with Justin at all. I think NiKo was the domino that started it.
Okay, so I guess
as in like the
Falcons offer
that he was supposed to leave and then he came back, right? Okay. Yeah, just so that people don't be like NiKo's fucking toxic again.
No, he's not toxic at all. But I think everyone already said it. Like, NiKo is one of the best teammates, and he helped me a lot as well.
I think the worst part is that the more people say that thing, the less people actually believe it, because it's like it's become this thing that like everybody who knows NiKo has said, and then like people still don't believe it. It's just funny.
Yeah, if they don't believe it, I don't care, to be honest, because I experienced it. So if you don't believe me, it's fine.
What's it called? Stockholm syndrome?
Yeah.
No, but then we come into I guess the second part of this whole story, because then JKS leaves or is benched. Nexa comes in. You go on to play the last tournament of the year, which would be Blast World Finals. So a year after you won the big event, you were still coaching technically, but you already kind of quit. I think NiKo, I think in an interview at some point, said he didn't know that you were quitting. It kind of came out of nowhere for him. And then TaZ was signed as the coach, but he couldn't coach because I guess it was too late to sign him up for World Finals. So how does that like exit from the team look to you?
I mean, I can talk a bit more in detail again, because for like what also killed me a lot was that in the whole year I didn't have an analyst or an assistant coach, and I think we were like the only team in the top 20 who didn't have broad stuff. So I had to learn how to coach. I had to be on the road for over 200 days and had to do everything by myself together with Rasmus. So after like December, I was like, holy shit, I'm actually dead inside, like really burned out, because obviously people don't see how much you have to do outside of the game. You have to prepare theory, you have to prepare practices, you have to prepare goals, you have to do a lot of shit outside of the game, which takes a lot of time. And then after practice, people come to you and say, hey, can you look at this? This could be interesting for us. So it's taking a lot of time when you are alone, especially when you make deep runs in tournaments, which always sounds good, but then you have to go after quarterfinals or something, you have to prepare for semifinals when you played late at like 8 p.m. You have to wake up, stay up until 3 or 4 a.m. to prepare, repeat, and yeah, that took a big toll on me. And then before we left to boot camp for Plus World Finals in 23, I told Prof, the assistant manager, who I always had a really good relationship with, that I just cannot do it anymore. And it's too much for me. Like, yeah, it just, everything was overwhelming without real support. Yeah, that was like the main reason.
Which is crazy for me, because like it was a lack of support because you didn't ask. I'm assuming you did ask management, being like, hey, I probably need a little bit of help here, maybe a couple of analysts or something. So why not, considering it is G2 the org? So that is the most bamboozling part of this entire thing for me.
I mean, I think they learned from their mistake, right? Because TaZ got an assistant coach pretty fast, so that's good. That they
it took a fucking long time for them to realize their mistake, because you can literally see you getting burnt out, and yet they didn't like add anyone in. Like, I'm sure they could find someone to at least help out with, for example, prep work, right? Just looking at demos, for example. That's not that complicated. So anyone, no, I wouldn't say anyone, but you can find someone easy to do that.
It doesn't even need to be like on site, right? A lot of analysts don't travel with the team. They just work from home and stuff like that. Talking to them, it's hard work. I mean, you did it before, so you know how it is, but it's oftentimes it is the exact thing that you finish with games at 8, 9, 10 p.m. and you need to prepare for the game tomorrow. You find out your opponent, there is no time to, you need to have everything ready for like 10 a.m. the morning when there's the team talk in prep for the next game, right? And this is something that m0NESY, even there's I think a clip that went kind of did some circles about like HooXi preparing until 3 a.m. I think this just makes it even worse when you know that you have a guy that is individually struggling, and a part of that is because he needs to like do all of these things and can't focus on his game because he is half, two of you are like half analysts, half whatever you're actually doing for the team. It's just fucking rough to hear, to be honest.
I mean, I'm assuming the worst part is actually during the events, right? Because that's where you can get a bit more sleep, you can get a bit more time because you have an analyst at home who can do a lot of the prep or like tendencies and stuff of the other team, right?
Especially when you play a team with a big map pool, because against some teams it's easy. If I have to prepare 3 maps, I can do it myself. But if I play against a team with a big map pool where I'm not sure which maps it can be, I have to prepare 4 or 5 maps, and then it starts to get hard. But I would have just wished that they would have said, hey, here's an assistant coach. And because maybe myself, I was not aware of it too much as well, because I said, I'm fine. But in the end, like I think it would have been good to see them with the experience to say, hey, you need an assistant coach, you're learning, and just put one in. That would have been great.
Yeah. You're also talking about just to circle back towards like the big kind of like domino that you were talking about. What was your input about the situation? Like, what would have your solution been at that point?
About what? Sorry? About
when JKS was the first one to leave. You said you gave the management some input or some feedback about what you wanted with the team or what your idea was. What, like, I'm sure you probably had multiple options.
Players or what?
I mean, look.
I mean, it's so long ago that doesn't really matter, to be honest, right?
No, I'm just curious about. Yeah, right, exactly.
At the time, it was like sjuush was a really good option, because that was also when they were starting to split up. Like, I would have liked to have sjuush and nerds, for example, for NiKo and JKS, which I think would have been really good. And sjuush was open to join. And obviously also, it's not a secret, but Krimbo, who at the time was really, really good. And I would have loved to have Krimbo in the team, but he's dedicated to big, which I respect. I mean, he had a lot of good offers.
Yeah,
really, really good offers.
We heard from like Vitality and all that stuff. Like, there was a point where like every top team wanted Krimbo, I think.
Yeah, I think we had a good list, but we ended up with not the best, not the highest priority on the list, let's say it that way.
Was it kind of a I don't know what to call it exactly, but then like
face.
But then like both Hunter and NiKo staying in the end, it almost, I mean, obviously, they ended up having some success afterwards anyway, and they kind of got out of the rut of CS2 at least. NiKo, turned his form around. But would it have been better for the team if they had left at that point?
Yeah, I think so. because then also you're not in this limbo all the time of thinking tournament to tournament if he's going to leave. And it would have been hard, but I think it would have been better to rebuild instantly and maybe get some players that you actually wanted to have.
So maybe that's how, it could have been evaded that m0NESY leaves to join with NiKo, if they just had started a little bit earlier.
I guess, but we will never know, unfortunately.
Yeah, I guess not.
Because like at that time, obviously he wanted to join Cloud9, which is like a pretty. It was like the super team in the making, right? And at that time, he wasn't so dead set on joining NiKo, which sounds like I understand why he's doing it now. Makes complete sense, but I don't think he had that level. Like it almost seems like infatuation with NiKo that he has now, like the way he speaks about him and the way he's like picking teams and like there's only one team I can join and stuff like that. Because realistically, if you're looking at the best players in the world, there's Vitality with siuhy where he's not going to join, and then there's Spirit, which he could join, but I think it's it's questionable how big of an improvement it would be considering how expensive it is. That for Spirit. So that's like a thing there. And also then the third best player after Donk and siuhy, you're gonna just want to join with NiKo, right? That just makes complete sense. But yeah, that's an interesting alternative timeline. I guess, which we'll never see happen. But yeah, then essentially what happens after that, so you leave, nexa, TaZ, and then soon after that, HooXi is benched, and they pick up TaZ. And at this point, you're kind of outside of the team, but you're still observing. Obviously, have your probably some inside info as well. Maybe not.
Yeah.
What's your take on like the first, I would say, I guess 6 months of G2?
I think they already started a very, very bad note by picking up TaZ because like HooXi never really had an input. Like I talked to him as well, and management asked him for his input and he wanted a different coach. And in the end, while we were in bootcamp, TaZ was here. Again, if for me, your IGL and your coach need to have a good bond, and like your IGL has to decide. Like you need to trust him and let him decide, not management decide. Like this was the first bad thing. And like he already were like not on the best terms instantly because obviously he wanted something else. And then for me, as when you are G2 and you act or you want to be like Real Madrid or someone who wants to win, like you cannot pick up a rookie coach for me. Like it was fine with me because I knew the guys for like 4 years. I knew what they needed. And for me, it wasn't like a big step up for me, like just the title change, right? But I don't think you can put a rookie coach in charge of G2 because they're a big team. They need to win. And if you don't have the results, you don't really get the time to learn. Because obviously the community will bash you, everyone will bash you, and it will take a toll on you. Like you can say it doesn't, but it will. And I don't blame TaZ for it because obviously everyone would take the opportunity, right? But I don't think it was a smart decision to put him in there while HooXi didn't really want him as well. So again, when you're management, you talk to your IGL wants this coach, okay, you take this coach. And if it doesn't work out, okay, then you can still change the IGL. But yeah, it started really bad. And then I think it was just a matter of time because the two of them didn't really work well together from what I heard. And now we are with Snax and TaZ.
I was going to say it's like the backwards approach, like you put in a new coach so that you can replace the IGL a little bit later with somebody he fits more. It just feels like completely backwards thinking to me,
And considering like, when you have to ask someone eventually, obviously if you're management, you're like, yeah, we're not going to kick the guy that we picked, we're going to take care of HooXi. So, yeah, but I got to sound rough for HooXi, dude. Like, holy shit.
Yeah, I mean, he got fucked over, in my opinion. Like, he's really, really good. Like, everyone said it, and I will say it as well. Like, HooXi gets so much hate for his individual stats, but he was literally sacrificing, right? And Snax has the same stats while playing LMS and clutching. Yeah.
Do you think, like, for HooXi, like, obviously, as you said, coming in from his old Copenhagen's Flames lineup and, getting to know working international lineup and whatnot, considering it was his first, like big team, so to speak. And do you think pressure did kind of get to him eventually? Do you think he was able to kind of rise to the occasion, or was he always like under that cloud of pressure near the end of his stint in G2?
I mean, pressure definitely got to him because he started looking more at his individual stats in the end, where he was trying so hard to improve individually that he didn't do too much like tactically anymore, you know, like he was playing so much deathmatch and trying to improve. But I feel like at the start it was good, but yeah, like everyone was bashing him so hard, like it's human that pressure gets to you, right? And you don't go in first anymore because you think about your stats maybe in the back of your head, you think what people are going to say, and when you start being 0 to 10, then you also call differently, because I could hear from his voice if he was like 0 and 7, he just didn't sound as confident in his calls like he would if he had a bit of better stats. So it's just human nature, right? Like you start doubting yourself, you're not hitting your shots, and yeah, everything adds up.
And from the team, like when you were when you were there with him as well, again, like how did the rest of the team? I'm guessing NiKo, for example, obviously considering he's the biggest voice behind him as well, right? Was the faith fully there in him from his team overall?
Yes, that's like the good thing. Like he always had full belief from everyone, and for example, sometimes they were also helping out. Like if NiKo or Hunter saw that, okay, HooXi, you sound a bit off, let me take over. You know, for example, sometimes on Mirage T side, HooXi just didn't like to call it, and NiKo heard it like in the middle of the game. He said, okay, let me take over. And that was like perfect for us. And it's not that NiKo is toxic again. It's not that we don't have belief, but that's like the faith that makes a good team, in my opinion. That they don't just let him call into our demise and then after the game say, hey, but you could have done this better. But they instantly stepped in and saw he was struggling a bit and then helped him out. I think the good thing is when he sounded confident, we had full belief. That's what you saw, for example, in Plus World Finals. Like, he was calling insane. We were jumping through smokes. We were following every call literally blindly, and it worked out. So I think there was never like an issue with faith. Maybe when things went bad, but
external stuff, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, yeah, TaZ came in, played out like most of the season until Dallas. He didn't play. He had a wedding to attend. They go with siuhy. NiKo is calling. They end up winning miraculously. And of course, I guess then that is used as a springboard essentially to go and say, okay, we don't need this HooXi guy. Let's find a different IGL because obviously we won without him. That's at least from the outside, which seems to have happened. And from like m0NESY's interview as well, like this is where the change happened. And unfortunately, it happened with degster, with OG. We spoke about it earlier. This kind of repeats. Like it's very dangerous to go and attend weddings or miss out on a tournament because you never know what's gonna happen. Ultimately, he was out, and then Snax is signed, and this seems like the first time management is listening to the coach because it seems pretty. Even though Snax and TaZ had their issues in the past, and most of the former Virtus Pro players had some issues between themselves. Maybe not public knowledge, but between like Neo, TaZ, and Pasha. A lot of bad blood over the years. I don't think it is anymore, but I think Snax is also, there are some bridges that had to be mended for this to come in. Ultimately, I think universally thought of as not a good pickup. So I don't know if you had any thoughts or extra things to add onto the TaZ.
I don't know. I think like externally it's really, really hard to judge. That's also what I don't like if like people on forums are judging IGLs or coaches because you don't know what they are doing, right? Like people are so quick to call Sonic one of the worst coaches in the world when you really don't know what he's working on. Obviously they didn't look the best, but I just think you also cannot underestimate how much HooXi helped G2 during Dallas, right? He basically did a lot of the prep work. He was basically working as a second coach. So I think just to say, okay, we can replace him and not use him anymore, I think was, again, a decision that was too quickly done. Like, I just think it was too fast and yeah, but I don't know, like Ilya said, and he played with them, that they didn't have a lot of structure. I think he said in his interview, so... I mean, I cannot judge it and I don't want to judge it. I can just see it from the outside, but it looked a lot individual skill again, but I don't really want to judge it.
Do you feel it's very similar to what you said about, them picking up TaZ? It doesn't have that, that coaching experience, especially for a team like G2. And again, in Snax, who was, I think, coaching Game Legion for a little bit, and obviously he has called way back in the past whenever they were rotating IGLs around with the Virtus Pro lineup. Do you think that was also maybe a bit of a gamble, I guess, by G2 there?
I think it's just one of those picks up that's not really appealing to your star players as well, right? It's not like one of those guys that, oh, I want to stay and play with him. It's like, yeah, let's see how it works. And it's not really like if you get a siuhy, for example, who's like the most upcoming IGL, you're like, if you're NiKo or m0NESY, you're like, oh shit, I would like to work with him. And then also for the people on the outside, like Jimmy, for example, who was open to leave Mouse, like it would have been more appealing as well. But if you are now looking in the outside and you are like a star player who has more offers than one, you're like looking at G2, you're like, it's a cool team, but it's nothing that I'm really eager to join, because in the past when we wanted Justin or anything, like we had NiKo, we had m0NESY, we could easily say, hey, come, you get to play with the best players in the world. And now you say, yeah, you get to play with an IGL that's not the best and the coach that's not the most experienced, it's like just not as appealing as before. And I think that's something that they didn't think about too much.
I mean, also with a NiKo that's about to leave, because we know,
exactly.
like we've known it for half of a year. m0NESY the same thing, it all dominoes from that one moment, where we knew that like eventually NiKo was going to leave, right? And like he was not going to stay with G2. And then that meant that m0NESY wouldn't stay as well, like that was always like at that point, I feel like it's just where it all went wrong kind of.
Yeah, I feel like they needed to dig into their pockets and replace them actually with people that other players are willing to play with, because you end up in this situation now.
Yeah, I do think that the mobs like pickup was a good move in that direction. Like if they had made one more like that, where okay, like it shows to m0NESY, shows to NiKo, okay, this org wants to get us like really upcoming and really good players and all that stuff. Like if they get an IGL that's proven, if they manage to get, I don't know, I'll throw out a siuhy or whatever, like somebody who's gaining quickly or gaining a lot of respect. That's what makes NiKo and m0NESY stay, because they see like, okay, this org is actually building us a team that we can keep winning with,
Yeah, exactly.
I do have a hypothetical just to add on to that, right? Just your thoughts, because obviously you work with NiKo and m0NESY and all these guys. In a parallel world where, they did get heavy got in, right? And NiKo did switch to the IGLing role. This is an idea that's been thrown about by a few people in the forums and everything. Do you think that would have been a viable team?
What, sorry?
With NiKo IGLing and heavy got coming in as well.
Yeah, I think so, but NiKo just wasn't too keen on IGLing, and
so everyone was wrong. NiKo doesn't want to IGL. You heard it first.
Even though he does like 70% of it, he's like
on the CD side. Yeah, that's the easy side, Prof.
He wants all the power without the responsibility. That's how it works.
I mean, it's a huge difference between being an IGL and being like a CT side caller, right? If you're an IGL, you have to prepare so much more. You have to sacrifice your aim, and like you have to sacrifice a lot more. It's not like, hey, I'm an IGL now, I continue like I do before, right? It's a lot more time consuming, and he's used to calling CT sides, and it's nothing extra for him, I would say. It's just part of his nature.
You could also see it from what he was talking about, that it's just not the right time for him yet. Like he knows he will do it eventually, but he just doesn't want to yet. So it makes perfect sense. I mean, he's still fucking beast, man. Like why would you want to give up your peak about probably the last few years of your peak, right? To just starting game leading.
Yeah. I don't think it would make sense for him.
Yeah. Let's move on towards the end of the year, because as we kind of spoke about, ultimately, first rumors about Falcons, then a U-turn, NiKo stays, all of the pieces kind of stay, then JKS leaves. We go on a year later, NiKo ultimately goes to Falcons. Report comes out a bit before the major. They go on to play the major. There's always pressure on G2, but this is kind of a different type. Like Mongolz also spoke about it. Like everyone wanted to really send off NiKo with his major, and they played pretty well. They were in the semis, and maybe should have won, but that game, that's a special game. That's a fucking G2 special, NiKo special game where he literally couldn't do anything. m0NESY's having a bad time. Like Mobs is probably their best player in that game, but it's just impossible to win, right? FaZe goes to the finals, and we see how that finishes. But yeah, doesn't happen. And then kind of the continuation of the same. Wouldn't it be better to just sell m0NESY at that same moment, or I'm trying to. I heard some different opinions on this, but like, what is the point even in keeping him for not even 6 months, 4 months, and then kind of being stuck in this limbo?
Yeah, I think it's also again to attract other players, right?
Yeah,
because what do you do?
But all the players know that he's most likely leaving, so I guess agents are doing their job, no?
Yeah, I think so, but yeah, I don't know about the market if there was actually something really good to replace him, but I don't know. I think it's like a really, really hard decision. Do you sell your best player? What do you actually do? I don't know if even Falcons considered him to. Probably they considered him to buy him at this point, but if you're G2, you also want, I don't know, maybe to show, hey, we still have the upper hand and show some dominance, maybe. I don't know.
What do you think, Striker, from the insider info? What was going on there?
I think it's exactly what Swani says. I mean, like, if you're G2, m0NESY is your last like chip, right? Like, it's the last guy that you can kind of lure some of the players that might be considering joining maybe a slightly worse team at that point, but that team doesn't have m0NESY, so like, obviously, like, he's going to be a big pull. So keeping him even for this, especially because it's like such a big transition, right? Like, where you lose NiKo and NiKo at the same time pretty much, and then like you lose the two of your two best players at the same time. I mean, that's just a massive disruption to the team, So even for those 4 months, I feel like, as much as it didn't really work out for them, it's not like they had amazing results or anything other than this final when m0NESY was already, pretty much set to leave, right? I think despite that, I don't know if they would have been able to get Heavy God at that point, like to come in, and I feel like that would have been a massive joining for them as at that to come in at that point, So I think it was kind of a no choice situation for the organization, I would say.
Yeah, the only thing that I heard as an idea, not necessarily as like inside info, is that it's also like a sponsorship thing, like in terms of G2 wanting to renew some certain sponsors or whatever, having m0NESY on the lineup maybe for the start of the year when these contracts are negotiated and stuff, help them, do some business. But it's more like a speculation than anything specific, which I can also understand. And I mean, what you said about Heavy God, yeah, maybe he would want to prefer to go somewhere else. I mean, ultimately, they ended up selling both, selling m0NESY before Bucharest, right? Obviously everything was agreed, signed. He did a media day, he did an interview with Banks, like he knew he was leaving before that event even happened. Rumors about replacement also circulating. So I don't know. I guess we can continue kind of to finish the m0NESY leaving story. I mean, just his interview with Banks was kind of telling in terms of the disappointment overall in G2, which is somewhat crazy that you pick up a player like this, and it was a specific gamble to some degree. Like, he was paid allegedly $600K, right? As a kid coming into G2 from an academy team, right? Had zero experience. Obviously had a lot of promise, but it was not 100% certain what's going to happen. And then first year had his ups and downs, really developed into a player you can find very few of, like literally him and siuhy, simple before, now Donk on the rifle, maybe NiKo based on longevity, but I don't even know if like peak wise you can put them in the same category. You lose both of them within 6 months. Where does this leave G2 as an org?
I mean, pretty much in the gutter, right?
I mean, you can't replace generational talent like that.
Yeah.
You literally cannot. There is no one else to pick up unless you can somehow get someone like siuhy, which ain't gonna happen.
I mean, they have to go like another talent route, like this Kriegs guy from Aurora, right? Like, they need to find and gamble on another young talent, I feel like. And pray that they find another talent like him. But obviously it's not going to be the same, but something close. And I feel like they need this young guy who also has this grind mentality, because m0NESY, like, he fired up the entire team by looking for things, deep diving into meta stuff, and like he was always the first guy to do some crazy stuff. And he was working until night and just trying to improve his own game. And it helped Hunter, it helped NiKo, who were a bit, stuck and a bit slower. But everyone saw, oh my god, this young guy is working so hard, I want to work extra time as well. So I feel like they definitely need like a young guy like him again that pushes them over the edge. So I feel like the Skrix guy is really, really good.
I mean, in terms of offers, it's really difficult to go and find somebody at this point. I mean, we know that CS2 has been difficult for anybody to have consistent results with the op, unless you are a Zywu or m0NESY, like generational talents that are just going to find a way, to have impact no matter what you give them, But it is just difficult to find any replacements. I mean, even looking back 4 months, like, yeah, you could have done the degster trade, but at that point, like, was degster really a hot commodity? I don't really think so, So like, it's like you're kind of stuck in no man's land if you're G2 at this point, because, like, yeah, of course, like you could get, with the money that you got from m0NESY, can you get kyousuke instead of like, and just get him like, make sure that he doesn't go to Falcons, so that we don't have this massive super team. Like, that's like, you have to go for a rifler almost, but then like, who do you get on the up? Do you just get a supportive guy and just not have that as a star role in your team? Or what else do? You do have to take some sort of a gamble.
That's also the thing. Like, someone like Kyousuke is not going to be joining G2 because if you have the
especially
Spirit, if you're in Spirit Academy, so you can join Spirit if you just wait enough, and Falcons is showing interest in you, you're not joining G2. Like, why would you be joining? This is like such a downgrade in terms of your options. That doesn't make any sense, right? So I think what is interesting is I don't remember when G2 was this low on the pecking order of orgs as they are now. And I don't know if they have been since, like, I mean, when they had their French rosters, they were very high for all the French players wanting to be there. For a bit, they had the international roster that went to FaZe, right? Then they became the friend. They had some point not really great, like the who would have been like Lucky and these guys. That wasn't like a great. So like, that's kind of where they are right now. They have a couple of upstarts, promising players in like Mongolz and Heavy God. And then Hunter as like, okay, like, he's a great teammate, but what everyone knows about him, he's good to have on a team. TaZ and Snax, I feel like are the part where you have to change that in order to attract something very exciting. Like, I think that's kind of what G2 has to do. They have to really like think about the direction, and for the first time seemingly in like 2 years actually make long-term plans and like pick up an IGL coach combo that wants to work together and just work with probably one of these like young oppers from a Russian-speaking country where they grow them on trees, apparently. Like, that's the only option that I see for them. But I guess kind of to wrap up G2 before we move on to Falcons and do a little ad break, what do you see for the next, I would say the rest of this year for G2? Where do you see them, like, in terms of the world ranking or like major placings? Where do you think they're going to be?
It really depends on how fast they're going to make changes, right? As you said, like, they need to change coach and IGL. And now that, for example, Game of Legion failed the major, like, you have to basically call Ash, I feel like. Because he's also really good at developing young talents. Like, if you get a guy like Krix, then maybe you can also get a guy like PR, like another young rifler, and try to start from there. Because if you wait too long, and again, I feel like they need to make changes fast, especially if this major is not going to work, which I think we all expect. It's maybe quarterfinals maximum. I mean, Hades.
I think they'd be glad for playoffs at this point, man. Yeah, especially with how Mobs is looking at the moment. I mean, I would be surprised at this point if they made it to the playoffs, to be honest.
I feel like you cannot continue this whole year with how the roster is right now. If you do it, then I think management is doing a big mistake.
I mean, what's happening right now? If you just look at him and with Hades getting picked up, right? I'm not even mad with that pick. About why everyone's like,
No,
oh my
it's
god,
fine.
I don't know why they picked up Hades. Who else are going to pick up, right? But I just feel like seeing the way they've done things so far, they're just going to see how this for the next couple of events, maybe till the major, and then that's when they might be like. I kind of feel like in a weird way, I hope they fail bad, just so the management like, all right, we need to make real proper sweeping changes overall. But if they get like some pretty deep runs in the upcoming events they're going to be playing, and also maybe the major, maybe they make the quarterfinals, right? I think the manager's going to be like, all right, this is good. We can keep cooking this for a little bit more, which in the long term, I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be a team that's going to win, championships.
I wonder, I mean, obviously the thinking here is that, okay, we write it out for the rest of the season and we see what becomes available in the next month or two, during the major or around the major, when all the teams are going to be considering, okay, what do we do for the second season and all of that stuff. Like those talks are already beginning now, or like around now, like what players might be looking to switch by the time the major ends and the summer break comes around, right? So like we're looking at a team like Navi as like the next potential European mixture to undergo changes unless they turn things around. Like let's say a JL becomes available, or one of these guys, or even like it's probably not going to be wonderful, but let's say he becomes available, that's a guy that G2 could look at, in the off season, and who knows if like whatever this mouse experiment doesn't work out and one of them like is gonna want to leave the nest as well, like I don't know, that's probably like G2's praying one of these other international roster blows up. Like FaZe are also another one of those, like what if you can get your hands on Frozen, for example? Like that would be another one of those pickups. Like all these, like there's going to be enough movement where they probably are hoping that they can get their hands on one of these guys, or maybe two of these guys. Like who knows? Like Kerrigan is like, fuck it, I would rather switch teams at this point, and they're going to get like a Kerrigan and Frozen, he's going to take his young gun with him again, or whatever happens. I don't know. I mean, there has to be some way where G2 think there's a reasonable chance they get like one of these bigger pickups once the summer break rolls around, just because a lot of these international teams are kind of in danger at the moment of like, we're probably not going to stick with the same lineup that we have at the moment.
I just wanted to kind of mention, people in chat are mentioning Hades. Obviously, he's on loan until the end of the major.
Yeah.
For G2, they're playing a few events. I think Melbourne is first, Astana, and I don't know if Dallas, but then Austin. But also, according to reports, rumors more, they earned like, what would it be, like $1 million for NiKo and like 2.5 for m0NESY. Is like 3.5. Is that a good ballpark, Striker? What do you think?
Honestly, I have no idea. I mean, I would be going off of the same stuff that everybody else hears, to be honest. I never heard any specific numbers other than that.
Because I think like monetary, they do have money to spend for sure. This is without a doubt. They have money to spend. The problem is not money, but we also saw like for Falcons, they're willing to spend and bring in players like Jimpat. Have like NiKo before, but sometimes it is about having the right pieces to attract the talent. So that's going to be the tricky part. And yeah, sometimes you have to go for a player that's has been good, but maybe is not recently. Like Robs, for example, last year he wasn't that crazy. Like when you look at the Robs Elite swap, they were like 18 and 19 on the top 20. It didn't seem like such a big difference. But then you put him in a functioning core, and things look completely different, right? The thing is, I don't know if G2 have that functioning core to elevate a player onto a new level. No one gave me a direct answer. I'll say I don't see G2 being a top 8 team. I think they can be where Virtus Pro, Astralis, 3D Max are now, in that group of teams of like, sometimes they'll make playoffs. Because I think Austin is going to be a huge wake up in terms of what m0NESY brings to a team, having a player that can just win you games. And Hades is actually pretty decent topper, but he's not m0NESY. That's just how it is. That's how it is. Realistic. Yeah. Okay. Any closing thoughts on G2 before we move on to Falcons? I mean, we might as well come back at some point, but you never know. Okay, then let's do a little ad break. Lucas, if you're ready, and then come back and talk more about Falcons and what they built for the season.
Sell in-game items at the best prices in just a couple of clicks. We are the biggest instant sell service for in-game items like Counter-Strike 2, Dota 2, and Rust. Easy selling process and instant withdrawal of funds to the most popular payment methods. More than 140,000 deals and 50,000 active sellers every month. Use promo code HLTV5 and get a 5% bonus on the sale of your skins. Skin Place. Sell items now.
It was more than a game. It was everything. Every single emotion on display. Not a moment missed. This was CSGO through the lens.
Welcome back. So let's talk about the other side of the equation. We're a lot of down for the first hour of the episode. A lot of sadness and bitterness overall. But now we'll talk about Falcons, who definitely got what they wanted, and in multiple ways. First of all, NiKo joined start of the year. Results actually not looking that great. Somehow they sign m0NESY, play without m0NESY, win a tournament, and now they have their guy. Let's start with general overview of this Falcons lineup. How good are they?
I think they're pretty decent. We saw as soon as NiKo joined, after like 2 or 3 games, the CT side got really, really good, and I feel like you can see that he's just improving the team insanely and instantly. So I think they are very good.
I'm just gonna add this as well. Like one thing I like about kyousuke, despite how new he is, especially playing in a team like this when you have people like NiKo, Zonic behind you, watching him, the T-sets especially, I feel like he's one of the better T-sets callers we have right now. Really cool stuff coming out from him. It does feel like the team overall seems to have that faith, especially when you have someone like m0NESY and NiKo in a team, and they're able to have that faith in what you're calling overall. I think it's a good sign overall. But this, yes, I think the big challenge is going to be with the expectations being raised for kyousuke, right? I think he's been delivering great so far, but for me, is he going to be able to deliver further? Because the pressure is absolutely on for Zonic and kyousuke with this addition.
Tracker?
Yeah, this is the time that they got the... Like, I know people are throwing around the word super team. I think we can't call this a super team because we didn't call G2 that had Hunter and JK as a super team, I think, at that point. And like, if you compare these two teams, like obviously NiKo and m0NESY being the two centerpieces, and then you look at around that, kyousuke versus HooXi, like who's actually better overall output-wise. I'm sure you can say kyousuke, but as an IGL, I'm not sure he's necessarily proven. And then TaZ and m0NESY versus Hunter and JKS, right? Like, I would make the argument that G2 was probably stronger than this in terms of experience and the individuals that they had at that point, especially considering, I mean, m0NESY could now go into that transformation you were talking about with Robs, right? I mean, he had kind of an off year in his standards anyway, off year, where he barely made the top 20 and all that stuff. And then he comes into a core that works, and then just he turns it around, right? It's not like I expect like the same sort of output from m0NESY, because just not like... Even he's not playing some of the same roles that Robs is, and he doesn't even have to. He's not going to be expected to, but he could be back to the m0NESY, that we know from, let's say, even last year, when he was one of the main guys who was actually bringing the team up and all that stuff. But overall, you can't really call this a super team or anything that diametrically different from that G2 team that had a lot of trophies, but it wasn't the super dominant. It wasn't a super dominant team that was just winning everything. It's just another one that we do now expect to be in the fight for trophies all the time within the group of mouNESY, Vitality, and Spirit. Like, that's like, it's another elite team, but I don't really think they're more than that at the moment.
So do you think they're in that group, or do you think they're below that group?
They're definitely in that group now. Like, especially like if you look at maybe not on par with Vitality, considering how dominant they've been, right? But on par with mouNESY and Spirit. easily, possibly even better than that. I would maybe even put them as second best at this point, just kind of like potential alone because of m0NESY. I feel like I'm still kind of riding the high of the change, and maybe we're still kind of yet to see how they will deal with it when things start going badly. And then Spirit, we already see issues happening with kind of their consistency, and sometimes just they can't reach that next level to beat the Vitality, to even to beat m0NESY at this point, who we didn't even expect to be this competitive, right? So I think they have to be somewhere in that group, especially considering we already saw what the peak can be like, even without m0NESY, even just with NiKo being, at his absolute peak.
What do you think, Blair? Do you agree? Because for me, I put them, let's see what happens. But right now, I put them just slightly below, and that is mainly because, like, TaZ has played pretty decent, pretty well actually in this playoff. But usually he's not really a good playoffs player. He's not like the one that like steps up in the big moment. And when you compare that to what they had in G2 and Hunter when they were making these playoffs, and Swani can probably attest to this, Hunter was an arena player. He is one of the few players that when you go into the arena, he plays better than in the group stage. We had some stats on this as well. So I think that's and also like Magic's form, which has been pretty rough for the last 6 months. I'm not sure they have like the depth to compete against like some of the top
I agree.
teams.
I agree. Well, obviously, it is still going to be an upgrade, right? And I think a lot of people they have like crazy short-sightedness when it comes to degster and his performance he had at this event. He was struggling overall, right? He had a couple of good games in Cluj-Napoca in the arena. Group stage has just been a bit of a struggle city. So look, credit where it's due. You had a great performance over there, but obviously m0NESY coming in is going to be a big improvement. But I have to agree with what both of you said, right? It does feel like that G2 of old, but with kind of a side grade if you compare it with that particular G2. Also, I have my questions for TaZ of this kyousuke, and I know this is like obviously it's across the next 3 months or something. But kyousuke, if this thing is gonna indeed transpire, there's going to be pressure on TaZ, so it's going to affect the mentality. He is human after all, and then as you mentioned as well, he does tend to kind of disappear at times. He can be very up and down as well, and especially when it comes to Falcons wanting to win these S-tier events, wanting to win your Dallases and Melbournes and all of these, and of course a major as well. You can't have having a player who has historically struggled a bit and has been inconsistent, knowing that he might potentially be going to be axed or benched or removed after the major. How is that going to affect his mentality? And is that going to be kind of the Achilles heel, so to speak? Right. So many factors over here. So yeah, I can't really disagree here. I feel like they will be better, but I don't think they're going to be better than the obvious better teams, if that makes sense. The S tier, the elite team, so to speak, right now.
I think ultimately the thing is we can't judge like this 5-man lineup, but even this 5-man lineup probably will not last that long. Like unless they really start winning and they win like or get to the final of a major or they win some tournaments in this run-up, it's pretty likely that they'll make changes. And the whole idea around kyousuke joining is because like m0NESY is now here. And we heard even before like Jimpat would join Falcons if m0NESY joined Falcons. So I feel like right now and for the next like 6 months, they pretty much have most of the top players interested in joining Falcons because they have m0NESY and NiKo. So that's the tricky part about it. I don't think, like obviously Falcons this season been pretty crap until this, and maybe they're good at 2 events that didn't have the top 5 teams pretty much. So that doesn't really say too much, but ultimately doesn't even matter. So I guess the short term is what we can focus on with our little segment. What are the odds? So Lucas, when you're ready, you can bring it up. Essentially, we're going to predict what are the odds that Falcons make semis at the Austin Major, because this is something we know who they're playing with. They're not going to make any more changes until the major. We know all of the teams. We kind of spoke about who the title contenders are. So yeah, let's start with Blair. Let's leave Striker last because he's always like doing some math and shit. So
I'm not going through this time. This is fucking impossible. So go ahead.
All right, let me get my phone out. Hold up.
I actually forgot. Like, I was just gonna say I forgot about Aurora completely when I was talking about like this elite group of
I
teams.
mean,
They have.
they
I mean,
kind of
they
shit the
are-
bed, so they.
I mean, they
now
can make it to the
it's like
quarters.
one tournament. You know?
They can make it to the quarters and stuff. Like, when talking about semis, you know, you're talking about deep run at the most prestigious event of the season. So I don't think they're going to reach the semis at all. I think the odds are, I'm just 33%.
Okay.
I'm pretty generous. I would have said 20 actually. 33.
Swani, what do you think? You know, these at least two of these players very, very good.
I would say more. I would say 60, because you have m0NESY and NiKo who can win you games easily, and especially when they get to the arena, when they get to a crowd like m0NESY and NiKo, they feed off of a crowd as well. So for me, it's definitely 60% at least.
Who do you see with them in the
Spirit,
semis?
Vitality, and Mouse, but it's a boring answer, but yeah.
Yeah, Spirit, Vitality, and someone random, or like, you know, plus minus one. Yeah. Okay. I'm also not sure. I would say less than 50% for me. Definitely possible. One of the problems is like how much time that's like 2 months almost exactly on the dot from today, and they're playing Melbourne, but they're not playing Astana, if I'm pretty
not
correct.
the other one. No, wait.
They're playing Astana, I think.
They play
They're playing
Melbourne for
Melbourne.
sure.
They'll play Melbourne, not Astana. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
They don't have like too much off time, and then they have like they're playing stage 3 or stage 2.
Stage 2.
Stage 2. Okay, so they can
They
also
have Dallas and Rivals before then as well.
Okay, so a lot of playing, not a lot of practice. I'm gonna give it like 42%.
I actually think the fact that they have a few tournaments before that is a good thing rather than bad, because I think like if you're going to bring in m0NESY, you're just going to let him run rampant and just like play your game around him. I don't think you're going to like, you know, as much as he was complaining about there not being enough structure and all that stuff, like he's still m0NESY. He's still going to be the guy that you kind of let whatever he wants to do, because I mean, you now have that piece, right? Like he's the one you build around. So I think just having them have some like real official playtime is better than, you know, having them have like a month off for practice and then like not really know what kind of form they're going into the major with. So I feel like the fact that they have 3 tournaments in the lead up, and then let's say, I think they have like 2 breaks for like boot camps, like after Rivals and then after Dallas before the major, like they have like 2 weeks and 2 weeks. And I think I feel like that's kind of like a perfect run up to the major. Like the 2 months period is kind of what we're looking at for teams to start finding their like what their real form is. So I think that's like, it just seems like it's working out pretty well. I think 60% is high. I was actually like that was my starting point. And like realistically, no team has like a 60% chance of reaching the top 4 at a major, even if probably Vitality would be the only one like right now, really like seriously mathematically or betting odds or whatever it is. So I'm going to go a bit lower, but I'd still say it's like a good 50-50.
50%?
53. Yeah. So how did they make it, or they don't? Perfect.
Well, I mean, it's just one of those things that like I said like they were going to be a part of those like elite teams, but then I forgot about Aurora, so that's 5 elite teams, you know, that will probably play for 4 semi spots, and then we know Navi can kind of squeeze in there, or FaZe, if they fucking get their shit together, they can squeeze in there and all that stuff, you know. So it's probably lower, but fuck it.
And 2 months is ample time, right? Like things can change. Even FaZe, for that matter, something could just click into place and suddenly they're up there as well. I mean, we saw what happened in Shanghai. So yeah, I think it's fair. I'm going to stick with mine.
Okay, so pretty split. Fans can vote on this on Instagram, HLTV.org, and Twitter, HLTV Confirmed. The poll will be out within 24 hours, and then we'll see what comes through. We can move on from this. I will mention that we did do one of these for Falcons making a change before the season ends. Predicted this. It was pretty likely. We were pretty confident about that one. So not a lot added, but something was added to the prize pool. We'll have a giveaway at the end of the season. We kind of glossed over it. I wanted to bring it back just for Striker specifically. kyousuke. This kind of report that went out that Falcons are looking into him, just because it came after the m0NESY thing, I feel like people just like turned off their brain and read it as he is joining Falcons. But my understanding is that's far from like a secure thing.
I myself don't have a lot on this, like how how deep are the conversations, or if is there an actual contract on the line and stuff like that. I feel like if it had, you'd probably look to bring him way earlier. So like that kind of tells me like you would want him for the major, right? Like if he was a set thing, and if you're Spirit, like why would you keep him for another 2 months? Like if you're gonna let him go after that anyway, like what's the point, unless you want to see until the break, if you really want to make changes and if you want to bring him in and all that stuff, So I don't really see another reason why they wouldn't bring him now if it was a done deal. So I would suspect that it's kind of, maybe it's advanced talks, or like they're talking about the buyout or whatever it is, but it is not, everything that I've heard, it's not something that is supposed to happen until 2 months from now, like supposed to be finalized until, let's say, 2 months from now.
Swani, if you're like Spirit coach management, would you let kyousuke go?
I would never let him go, but I think, but him going to Falcons, I think, would make the team a bit unbalanced as well, right? You would have a lot of aggressive players. You would have NiKo, kyousuke, Ilya, who all require space to work really well, I feel like. I think TaZ is really good at balancing out the team right now. And it's the same for me, like m0NESY to Spirit never made sense because Shiro is complementing Donk really, really well, especially on CT side, where he's like, he has his back, he's like playing more passive, he lets Donk do his stuff. But I feel like kyousuke would fit really well to replace one guy on Spirit for sure. But on Falcons, I'm not so sure if it's a bit too aggressive.
I mean, I think the fun thing to read is like, there's no point in kyousuke joining Spirit because Donk is there. As like, motherfuckers, NiKo is on Falcons. Like they literally play this. Even if anything, Donk is more aggressive than NiKo. NiKo is more calculated and balanced. Like that doesn't make any sense. What makes sense is that Chopper on CT sides plays the rotation roles as the IGL, which Kicksan doesn't do. Right, that's more TaZ for them. So in that kind of balance, you could see kyousuke and NiKo in like short and connector on Mirage, for example, which obviously if that would be on Spirit, then Chopper would have to move somewhere else, or kyousuke would have to take like an anchor role, which, you know what, if he's as good as everyone is saying, then he can probably do a pretty good job in some of these roles as well. Maybe, there's some positions where like Zontix plays short on Mirage, even though he plays mostly anchor spots. There is options there, but I don't see this. It doesn't make any sense to me, to be honest. It doesn't make sense why they let him go, unless he really doesn't want to play for the Spirit main team. That would be also kind of a fuck up from them, I guess.
That would be kind of insane if kyousuke was like, no, I'm not going to play in the Spirit main team. Like, exactly. It's just also like the international move and all that stuff. Like, I know that his English is pretty all right, but he's never played in one, so who knows how that would work and if he would be a fit and all that stuff. So like, it is obviously a gamble for him to go anywhere else if there's a world where he can. I mean, if
Simple could do it in Liquid, I'm sure he'll be fine, dude. It's okay. He'll be fine. True.
I mean, we know how that turned out, though.
It was still fine for a while, some major semifinals and all of that.
He'll take it. Talking about the Simple to G2 idea.
There's been a train of that thinking for sure.
Absolutely not. No. Like listen, looking at what's happening in G2 right now, the turmoil you have, then you're getting in Simple, right? And and I'm just saying the name Simple, and you know what's going to be attached to that. You're going to have, of course, the greatest player we ever had. Sure, a guy who hasn't played SOCS properly for quite a while right now, and obviously with that comes the personality of Simple, and then you throw that into this particular cauldron of what the fuck is going on. That's a recipe for an explosion. Not gonna work.
I was just shocked to read it from like so many people, and also people that criticized Zonic, for example, for his decision. One of his decisions bringing in Simple into Falcons before the major, like the RMR last year, which completely backfired. I don't see how that makes any sense. I do not see that as a valid option. Honestly,
people approving Prof, why democracy is a mistake, so you shouldn't really be listening to people nowadays. It's not working out. Just ignore them.
Honestly, I feel like if Simple got an offer from Passion's UA, I think that would be a good offer for him right now. And I respect a lot what he did. I'll just add this.
I agree, actually.
Yeah.
I actually agree. Yeah.
Okay.
Imagine he goes to bait and like reunites with NPL.
That'd be great.
Bring SDY and fucking Avora's in Passions UA as well. So I don't know. Maybe
There you go.
Yeah. Anyway,
Best place for him.
Let's just touch on PGL Bucharest a bit. Even though I don't even know what to speak about this Falcons run, which is like already so irrelevant in itself. Because they managed to go from 0-2 to 3-2 and then go through the playoffs, beat G2 in the final. degster the MVP, the guy that's getting replaced. I don't know, Blay. Make some sense of it.
It's that dead team buff, right? I guess I don't know if that's ever a thing, but listen, I feel like for degster, obviously he knew about him being benched as well, so I felt like he was absolutely more unleashed, right? And a lot of people call him a big game player and all of that, and I can be inclined to that. I think he really played a very big role in getting this particular win because it wasn't the NiKo show, so to speak. So I guess it does speak to, if I'm going to take something positive out of this, considering they knew there was going to be a lineup change, considering we knew that they were absolutely not the favorites for this particular event, they were 0-2 down. I feel a few flowers can be flung the way of Zonic, Hickson, and the crew altogether. degster as well. I think more importantly for degster, considering now he's going to be on the market or on the bench, whichever it is, or maybe both. This is a good way of him showing that, hey, I can deliver sometimes when the chips are down, when things are going bad, and I think it's a good testament, I guess, to his particular mentality, because that's been something which has been kind of rumors circulating around that he's not exactly the best teammate or the best guy to play with or whatever. The reason he's been benched from multiple teams, even the heroic core, for example, we heard rumors about him actually, being a part of the deal because that deal actually happened, right? So I think this is a good thing to add to his resume overall. It was a weird event, I won't lie, overall for a lot of teams. We saw some of the favorites completely combust, Mongolz, for example. But yeah, it's one of those events, studio land environment tends to happen.
Yeah, Swani, what did you make of all of this?
I would agree and say the same. Like, even you're at that team, it's so much easier to play without pressure because nobody expects anything. Everybody's already looking in the future about m0NESY and everything, and it just clicked, and I think they probably had a talk after they went down 0-2 and just said, guys, let's play loose, fuck it, play your game, and then, the miracle run happened.
I wonder we have to ask Sonic about what he talked to the team about, because there's been a few references now to some talk having happened after the 0-2 and what he said to the team. degster said it, I think somebody else said it, I can't remember who, that there was some talk that happened after the 0-2, like, debacle, and that apparently turned everything around, and I'm just curious, like, what's this magical talk? Like, what happened? What could he have possibly said at that point? It's like, guys, fuck it. We're not going to be in this lineup anymore. That's about all you can say at this point, So I just don't really understand, He's
like, if we play well and we can sell degster, whatever we get, it's like a sign-on bonus for all of you guys. We split it 5 ways. Let's do it, guys. So they just carried him, and somehow NiKo is like carrying him well enough, but also playing bad, so he doesn't get the MVP. He's like he's playing well, and then as further they went, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking sandbag this tournament, and it all worked out perfectly. That's how it was. 1xBet actually posted like some odds and stuff that they had, and apparently the odds for degster MVP was 1 to 100, so 100 odds on degster being the MVP of this tournament before it started.
At the beginning? Okay.
Yeah, I guess before it started. I didn't really specify, but
honestly, that seems high.
Seems high, or
high? Yes,
seems ridiculous. Yeah,
bro. But like, why would it? They weren't supposed to even get to the semis.
But that's what I'm saying. I would have put it at like 0.5% or less than that even. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think 100 is the max that they offer for stuff. Might be the max.
Are you implying that NiKo completely sandbagged just to put his money on degster? Is that your implication here?
I didn't say that. No, that was. What do you think? What are the options for degster? Because I wanna put out my thoughts on degster, because I think people get it confused, like, he's a bad player. No, but obviously he can no scope 3 guys. It's like, I think skill wise, he's a really good player and has always been a really good individual. Obviously had some ups and downs, you know, stats maybe not the best at the start of this Falcons lineup or towards the end of Heroic, but you could see like the raw skill was there. But I think it's two things. One is like sometimes his decision making is just so not on point. Let's just say like his awareness of what's going on the map doesn't seem on the top level. And when you compare him to someone like m0NESY, the disparity is huge. And then just like the in and outside of the server, I know people talk about him as an extrovert, but I think when you see him usually within a team, maybe this is because the team atmosphere is bad and he thinks he's getting kicked, but like oftentimes he feels very isolated from the team. He's not really an like outgoing guy unless things are going very well, and then he's very outgoing. And like on camera, I see him like that, but doesn't seem to be, you know, clicking with a lot of teammates. What do you see as the future of degster?
Maybe, I mean, probably FaZe is going to be on the hunt for a new op soon, I feel like, because broky is not good. Just to say it like
broky.
This. Yeah, I feel like he's not good, but for me, I think maybe starting and going a tier below again to like Bedboom or something like that and grinding his way back up and showing himself. Because there's not a lot of option. I feel like the only options in tier 1 are FaZe and Liquid, because I'm not too sold on Ultimate as well, and I feel like he could be a difference maker for Liquid as well. So yeah, only Liquid, FaZe are taking a step down to Bedboom.
I would just echo Prof's sentiments there. Like if you watch degster op, and this is where I feel the two things align, right? Like when you're talking about the synergy he's got with his teammates in a server and the way he plays the game as well. There's so many times when he's positioning himself, you know, trying to do a little too much, I feel like, not aware, like not, it almost seems like sometimes it just doesn't know where his teammates are, or they're not talking to each other or whatever, and he just puts himself in these positions where he just can't get out of. But you see him in a clutch, in a 1v2, 1v3, the guy just fucking pops off after highlights coming up from this guy. So I feel like it's kind of related in that way. And I think that's my biggest criticism for him. He does seem to come alive in the playoffs games. We saw that in both the PGL events this year, right? He was really, even in Cluj, he really stepped up under the bright lights and whatnot. When it comes to the extroverted thing, Prof, you mentioned, I feel like there's a mismatch of energy. Right. Sometimes I feel like he's not able to read the room and be like, all right, you know, things are not doing great. It's like, come on, guys, let's fucking go. And you can see everyone else be like, yeah, all right, you know, just don't hit my hand. Right. It just feels a little odd. Replacing people, I think Liquid works. I think Liquid would be, I think they need all the help they can get right now. A lot of changes they've made so far, but a rough debut for sjuuhy. I don't know about FaZe, man. Like, yes, broky is struggling right now. Absolutely. But are we gonna, you know, just base our degster coming in for him based on this one event getting the MVP as opposed to what broky has done across multiple S-tier wins and what he's pulled off with FaZe? Sure, it has been kind of rough so far for him this year, but we still see he's not completely disappeared, right? We still see moments from him where he does absolutely come alive in a series and kind of dominate a server. And sure, it could be because of maybe Rob's going away and maybe a bit of his, he can be a bit, you know, temperamental is what people have said as well. That could be a problem. But I just feel like broky, there's such a highs he's hit in his career in this lineup, and along with the synergy they have, I think it's going to be very hard for degster to come in, especially considering for degster, we just said, he does not seem to quite sync up with almost all the teams he's played so far, if you think about it.
I mean, even on Spirit, he was also really good, and then kind of got removed inexplicably to a lot of people, right?
Yep.
Yeah, people. What did
I mean, I'm kind of surprised. I was kind of surprised that like G2 didn't just get him as like in a return for m0NESY as a whatever temporary thing, you know, give him a 3-month contract, just get a swap in. I don't know if it's, I mean, it might have been because of the like visa situation. Obviously, it's not the easiest thing in the world for Russians to get visas for America anywhere. I mean, but America especially these days. So that could have played into that, unless he already got one from Falcon. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows what the situation is there?
He did suck for quite a while. So I could see G2 being like, yeah, we don't want that swap. Maybe.
I mean, of course, that's also another thing. You know, like if had they seen degster now, you know, maybe if they had made the decision only after the event, maybe they would have just said yes to a swap. Who knows what else played into that decision? You know, that was like a surprise to me. But then again, yeah, what you're saying is absolutely fair.
Yeah, someone in chat said, what about Na'Vi? First of all, I think Wonderful is better than degster. Secondly, if they would not get a Russian player. There was even a part also with the m0NESY interview where he said that in his contract he had clause that said essentially G2 need to offer him first to Navi, like a right of first refusal. And obviously they did that, and Navi said no. And that is, he's a Russian player. That's in this current climate for a Ukrainian org, not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. That's just how it is. And, you know, it is sad. Obviously, he's super, you know, close with Bit. He came from the Navi Academy team. He also said he would like to play with Blade. So I have no doubts that he would have not. I have some doubts that he would accept that, but I think it would be a pretty lengthy discussion if that was on the table between that and Falcons, but not going to happen. What do you think, Swani? You know him better.
I mean, he always loved to play with Bit, right? I think it's also more possible for me now that Bit actually goes to Falcons like the other way around, right?
Say that.
I think that's a lot more possible because in the past he would have accepted, like 1 or 2 years ago, he would have accepted Navi easier than now, because I don't think Navi is interesting right now, at least for a player like m0NESY.
Yeah,
I mean, there was also a lot of talk about like Bits being approached by G2 to make m0NESY happy and all that stuff. You know, maybe you know something about that, but that didn't end up happening, I think, on the Navi side as well. You know, so who knows?
Yeah, heard similar rumors, but you know, Navi wasn't really interested in letting him go.
I mean, absolutely fair play from Navi, to be fair.
I mean, yeah. Definitely, I think he is their like most iconic player now, like homegrown and everything. And in some ways, you know, JL had an insane year last year, but Bit also in his role, one of the standouts for sure, like anchor of the year for last year. I have one for you, Striker. It's your moment.
Is it fix your shit time?
Fix your shit, presented by Anthros. So not only do we fix your back with a comfortable chair that is apparently on its way now, let's fucking go. We also try to fix shit in the community. And Striker, you picked this one, so I'll just leave the floor to you.
All right, can we bring up the tweet? Because it just rubbed me such a wrong way, and I'm not usually one to call individual people out, because I'm not a guy who likes to create conflict. But in this case, it just feels like such an unreasonable thing to say from the sports psychologist of Falcons, Lars Robl. Lucas, can you bring it up?
I can.
All right. So he said, nothing embodies trust the plan, trust the process more than this run. Promo 0 to start to lift in the trophy with a clean sweep over G2 in the final. What a statement. The second part, everything's fine with that. But the fact that he called this win as part of a plan, as part of trust the plan, trust the process, I could not even believe that I saw that, because it's like the absolute opposite of like a trust the plan kind of win. First of all, like I will just say the fact that I've tweeted out 1 series away from an elimination on day 2, 1 map on day 3, 2 rounds on day 5, 3 rounds on semifinal day, and then they stopped the final. Like that's the first time that they ever looked, you know, convincing at any point. They could have been eliminated 5 different times during the tournament, and everybody would have called them shit. Like they would have called them as they're that team. They're about to go out. Add on top of that, the guy, first of all, you're already going into this tournament knowing you're going to replace a guy. That's the plan. So are you trusting the plan that you're going to replace the guy who will then put up an MVP performance because he's on the way out for you to win the tournament? I mean, that doesn't really make sense, does it? Like, I mean, it's just all of this.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here. It kind of makes sense in a weird, twisted way. If you're high as fuck, is basically if you're like, you know, the plan was to replace degster. Right, that is the plan, as you said, and they won, and they won the fucking tournament. So yeah, trust the fucking plan, trust the process, Striker. Come on, man.
Right? Yeah.
If anything, if there was any plans, the plan was like, we're not expecting anything from this tournament because, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, it's one of those. It's one of those. We saw a couple of trust the processes. A couple of them came from G2 as well. We actually didn't speak about the statements that came out from long tweets, essentially, from Petsa, from the CEO, Alban, and also from TaZ. Didn't find any of them really exciting, but, you know, they have nothing else to say but trust the process, because they don't really have anything concrete to tell the fans like, okay, this is what you have to be excited about. I think I agree with the sentiment, but I honestly could have also been a bit more frank. I feel like it's a lot of PR and BS coming from that whole camp right now, when the reality is like, yeah, we are in a very difficult situation. We lost 2 of the best players to ever play Counter-Strike, and we need to find a replacement, and it's not going to be, you know, all roses moving forward. You know, when people write stuff like, yeah, trust the process, we'll in Valorant we have recruited talent, and in League of Legends we're one of the best, is like, yeah, so fucking what? You know, what kind of NiKo and m0NESY do you have in G2, and how many major titles do you have in League of Legends? No, there's also none. Haven't won fucking Worlds there either, so I don't know what we're talking about. You're probably better, unfortunately, in CS than you've ever been in League of Legends, funnily enough.
How's the league catching strays here?
I'm just saying, like, it's fucking content.
I agree. I'm just saying.
Don't even watch League of Legends anyway.
But it's crazy. I know you don't watch League of Legends. All right.
Yes, that was that. Fix
and
your,
by the way,
fix your shit presented by Anthros.
Right, funny twist in that. You know, I am a guy who at least at some point followed League of Legends and somewhat has an idea of what G2 have been through for a while. They did not lose the best like European player to play in the league for like I don't know how long. By the way, as they did now with m0NESY and OCaps, who's just stayed with the team the whole time, you know. So they never had to deal with a situation like this in League of Legends because they always had the best player in Europe, or like okay, not in the last few years, whatever. That's all I have to say on League of Legends on this podcast.
Anyway, Blay, Mongolz.
For fuck's sake! All right,
we have two almost Asian teams, Liquid and Mongolz. Absolutely.
Don't get me started. Don't do this.
Class.
Do not bait me into this, Prof. Just say Mongolz. It's not
disaster class. Honestly, Liquid 06 in maps. But we'll leave them on the side for now. Mongolz, we're supposed to win this tournament. What happened?
I think they have the same problem we've seen from them in a very long time. I mean, they've had for quite a while right now, right? Because I keep repeating this when it comes to the Mongolz, but if you look at the ascent they've had in the past 1 year, like beginning of last year, where they made to the major, they make the next stage of the major, it's always about getting to the next step, the next stage, right? Winning a smaller event. We saw that happen in I think it was in Yala Compass, right? Like an A-tier event or CCT tier event, as a lot of people love to call it. I agree as well. And once they started like making this playoffs run, I think it started with the I think they won a Thunderpick event in Berlin, which was a decent solid LAN altogether. It just started making playoff runs after runs, but the same problem which reared its ugly head, which is the pressure mounting in. Senzu, I think, is the easy one to pick out, single out over here. He struggles in playoffs, right, when it comes to the most important games of a particular event, and I think that's something that they haven't been quite able to ameliorate so far. And then I got to give criticism where it's due as well. I feel like Blitz as an IGL, even though when the going is good, the team looks fucking phenomenal. I'm talking about, like, you know, you're watching them play these 2v2s, 3v3s, and the small little tricks they use, right, on the fly thinking. It's really, really cool to watch them play. But when it comes to these events, like the elimination game against Falcons, for example, right, you could see the amount of individual mistakes being made by almost anyone not called m0NESY. Right, I'm seeing fucking Senzu from Big Box, gets 2 kills, play the time, it's 10 seconds remaining. Nope, goes for the swing, dies, they lose the round. You see Blitz, you know, just kind of seemingly banging his head in the game as well, just running in by himself. We see Techno, he's been having stinkers after stinkers. And I feel like when the going's good for them, when it comes to the, well, at least before Bucharest, when it came to the group stages, they used to feel very comfortable. But when it comes down to elimination games, when it comes down to making to, you know, semifinals of an S-tier event, they need that mental coach. I don't think they've found it yet. I've heard from one of the guys who works in Mongol organization said that they have hired someone to kind of deal with that side of things. I don't think either they're taking a long time or they haven't been able to quite fix this problem, because I really think it's a pressure issue. You could see the way they play certain scenarios when it comes to when they're winning, when things are looking comfortable, as opposed to a 2-2 matchup in a Swiss group, or maybe a semis for that matter. They just make too many individual mistakes, except for, ironically, the youngest player in the team, that's m0NESY, which is fucking insane to me, considering the roles he plays, and he's the one guy who's cheering, who's doing everything, and I see him crying at the end of Bucharest, and I just want to fucking get so mad on his behalf, but I'm not gonna be mad. That's my thoughts on Mongolz right now.
At least you had an Indian team win an MRQ, so...
Yeah, I'm still kind of gobsmacked about that one. That's fucking insane. They beat Huns, man. Who did they beat? They beat VP, I think, and what's VP? They almost beat Falcons as well, if I'm not mistaken. Huns with 9 at the lineup.
I think they went 0-2 out, but they
had very close games, right? Yeah,
and they lost the spirit, and then they played close to Falcons.
Yeah, and they lost to an Indian-Pakistani mix. You know, finally Counter-Strike going to fix a subcontinent and all its fucking issues, which is great to see. I don't think they're going to make it out though. They still have to beat Eruption and Genghis Warriors if they want to make it through. But still, hey, a win's a win. We'll take that, right? Considering, you know, we're .exe and all of that. Shout out for a second at one time.
Swani, any thoughts on Mongolz that haven't been said by Blair? Or...
Yeah, I feel like they just have a problem if they cannot shoot their way out of situations, right? They just lack like this tactical depth if things go wrong. If they do not hit their shots, and you see like they're still trying to force the issues with single pushes, everyone trying to be the hero, instead of relying on a bit of team play. But that's something that we see a lot with those teams, also with like the Tyloo in the past. Like they were fucking insane on Mirage where they could just run around. But yeah, when it comes to teams actually preparing for them, I feel like they're struggling.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately they are the youngest team that we have on this like tier, and I think that's something that gives them a lot of leeway. But at the same time, they're also the longest standing roster together. Like as 5, they've been together for like a year and a half, and it's kind of, it flies a lot under the radar. I think that's where the dichotomy of like, they are young guys, we should keep them together, and this roster has like run its course, we need to change. I think these are the two ideas that are kind of conflicting from a Counter-Strike pundit perspective.
I think that's kind of a crazy thing to say, to be honest.
I don't want to make any changes right now for a very simple reason. First, as you said, very young team, right? And they have that particular synergy. And again, like when they're, you know, when they're in their stride, the teamwork, the micros, the way they approach so many of these rounds it's fucking phenomenal. Like they are world beaters, apart from, let's say, you know, maybe a Vitality, for example, right? And also there's no one else in Mongolia. If you really think about it, it's crazy because there's the Mongol players, and if you really go down the list of players out there, all
no
of
one
them
from ATAX for you, Blair?
Well, if they get unbanned, yeah, sure, maybe, buddy. But I'm just looking at a lot of these individuals, and I can't fairly pick anyone to replace anyone on that team, right? Even Techno, who's kind of the lowest rated player, if you look at the role he plays and what he does, he's the most sacrificial player for his team. m0NESY and 910, easily the best 2 role players in the region. Blitz, I don't even have to bring him up. And Snax is the best Mongolian player, so sure, you could try and replace Techno, but I wouldn't bring anyone in. Like, if you look at all these other individuals on the other Mongolian teams, they're way, way below these 5 guys here, and I think that's all because of Mara, in all honesty. So yeah. Yeah, don't bring that up, Prof. They don't need to break
I think it's crazy to suggest changes, to be honest, now that they're at the basically the best a Mongolian or even Asian teams ever looked, you know. And you're like,
but they also looked the best before their changes, and then they made changes, then they evolved. I'm not saying they should. I'm just saying it's an idea.
Yeah, but you can't be lucky like 4 times in a row, right? Like, even though Mara seems to be
lucky.
God.
You can't be lucky 4 times in a row. That's why they know what they're doing. So the next change is also gonna propel them forward.
Every time I went to the casino with that mentality, Prof, never worked out. Ever. Don't gamble, kids.
Well, good idea. Liquid. Anyone wanna make any takes, or are we just like writing it off as the first event?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, because I think sjuuhy also said it, like he didn't even know who's like the second voice and everything, and he basically just got in, and
which he should know.
Yeah, of course, but as I said, and you said as well, like practice in official is so different. Even when we played in G2, like practice sometimes was just useless, and now in the officials you actually see who is taking over and who is speaking up when it matters, you know, because in practice sometimes people talk a lot more than they actually would do in officials. So I would say it's fine, like for the first officials.
Okay. Yeah, I also don't want to, like, it was horrible, but Also, don't want to draw too many conclusions. Let's actually see them play after a bit more practice.
I'm worried for Naf, man. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on there? Like, at some point he was just this guy who would always perform. Even if he's in a lot of passive positions and all that stuff, but like he would always be there. Now he's had like 4 bad tournaments in a row to start the year, and there was like when they made this change. Had it not been for the regional stuff, there was a good argument to make that Naf was the guy you'd cut at this point. That's the part that I feel like is going to be kind of unraveling for the next 2 months as well for this team. So I feel like the changes might not be over exactly because of that part. But like if he doesn't turn it around until the end of the season, like could be that they go and grab another player. Because it's just not performing on this on that side.
Yeah.
So I don't like that they're heading into this period when potentially another limbo, because I don't know, like rumors, whatever. Like I have heard that was like a line of thinking that it could be Naf getting cut. I don't know how much truth there is to it, but if that is true, like what are the next 2 months going to look like? Before you play the major, you probably know this lineup is dead already anyway. Like it's not a great way to start your time with a new game leader. So it's curious. I'm going to keep a close eye on that.
I think it's a little premature in all honesty, because you just look at Naf's numbers in 2024, right? He literally had one event which was like red, which was the opening stage of the Shanghai Major. Apart from that, he's been green throughout, and I'm just going to chalk it up to the changes that were going to be happening in Liquid and the struggles they had with Twist, IGLing and everything. I think Naf's done enough on this team, at least last year, to give him a little bit more time to see how this show experiment pans out. And sure, if things don't pan out after till at least the major, then sure, go for the changes. But I would give him the leeway because the guy was just a rock for this team last year, even despite the struggles. So maybe it's a symptom of what's, with the IGL changes and all of that shit.
Yeah, I mean, the whole regional thing, Striker, that you mentioned, maybe it doesn't matter. We saw a wild card for them. It doesn't matter which kind of roster they have. I don't want to get into that because we're already kind of late into the show. So we'll probably mention that next week when we also see all the details, how it plays out. But it's a very curious situation happening with wildcard, who brought in Stewie2K to stay in the American MRQ because they would have played European MRQ with FUZI and then ended up playing the American MRQ with FUZI anyway. So let's give it. We'll talk about it next week. This was an interesting aftermath, as I said, of PGL Bucharest. FURIA looked abysmal once again. They've been together for 8 months with Skulls going on 9. Things had to change. Their CEO, I don't know if CEO Jamie Padua came out, said there's not a lot we can change until the major. 2 days later, they signed an offer. And it was very fun. We were out having drinks in Bucharest, and I was like, FURIA signed someone. Let's play a game, and you guys guess who it is. No one was even close, like kind of on the continent, but not even close to actually not. Kazakhstan is fucking in Asia. So no one picked even close to this guy. What the hell is going on? Striker?
If you're looking to me for reason, I cannot make one on this, but
I think it's just a setup to go international a lot more, right? I feel like this is the first step for them to go international and to expand their pool, because obviously the Brazilian pool is not deep enough for them.
I don't think it's about deep enough. It's about getting players out.
The cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So they have to go international, and I feel like that's the first step. Like Foreign said, he's setting up to take a more operational position as well. Like, I don't know what he wants to do, but I think next year he's not going to be playing anymore. And they're probably going to go more and more international.
Seems crazy though, because if Mincello getting cut, I mean, I'm not surprised in all honesty. He's been struggling quite a bit, but is that the main problem for the team? I don't think so. The changes just don't make any sense. Fallen switching to rifling, this guy coming in switching to. I'm assuming you're going to be speaking English, right? And it's going to be just like fucking Junior all over again. And I don't know, man. I don't know what the fuck they're smoking over there. I was actually gobsmacked when I saw them. Like, what? I actually literally said, "What the actual fuck?" when I saw that.
I think to try to play devil's advocate, right? And it's partly from what Fallen was talking about as well in that little comment about the move and all that stuff. Like clearly, as Swani said, this is kind of like the first step of him getting transitioned out of the roster at some point, whether it be into coaching or into more like behind the scenes stuff, like with management or whatever like that. I would probably put my chips on more of the management side, because I don't think he just wants to travel and all that stuff anymore. But regardless of what exactly the move would be, for him to transition out of the roster cannot happen in one single change, because you're not going to get an all-pro IGL. Let's just say that. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, there's a handful of them in the entire world who are at a level that could play at like the top 10, whatever, like if you want to have, right? So let's say the idea is, okay, we're going to like establish some sort of a structure, start this international move with this. I'm going to keep my structure, but I'm just going to change my individual role, right? I'll still be in the pack and stuff like that, and just still be able to call just from a rifle, right? And then further down the line, they'll just replace him as an in-game leader, right? Instead of, having to make a double change at some point for him and an opera, like for an in-game leader and an opera to come in at the same time. That comes with a shitload of structural changes and all that stuff at the same time. So I can kind of see it, but it's just kind of ridiculous for me that like 4 Brazilian guys are playing with a Kazakhstani guy. We saw that happen before. That didn't really work out, regardless of how much kyousuke said that they brought him a lot of experience and all that stuff. It just didn't work. So I don't know, unless this guy is just is going to be like the next rookie of the year or something. I don't really understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think this is bad. I think it's in the short term, it's horrible. Like, also, where do you put Fallen? Like, what is Fallen going to play on the city side? Is he going to anchor? I think that's a bad idea, because
who's gonna fucking call the CT?
Yeah, because you want him. He's probably gonna be in like more active positions, and his op was okay. His rifles were not good. So I just like Cadian and Astralis, it doesn't really. It's not good. It's not good. It's just like at least in this case, we know it's a temporary thing. But also, I have one like counter argument to this whole like international thing. Who do you think internationally is going to want to join you? Like, what do you think? You're some hot shit in the world? Because we just spoke about G2, and like they're going to have trouble attracting top tier talent. If you're FURIA, at least like in Brazil, people want to join you. What do you say?
Simple.
FURIA simple. There we go. Just like SK.
They got the money.
Simple.
They got the money.
Coming.
They need an op,
They want to sell jerseys, they can sell jerseys. There we
go.
Like, I just don't agree with this idea of everyone's international is going to be better for everyone. It's you also have some pull from your local thing, and I know like these buyouts are crazy, but I don't know. Don't
you think it's fucked that the best Brazilian team, the one that has the most pull, in theory at least, maybe it's not true because they haven't really gotten any big players in a long time. Isn't it crazy that that's the team that goes, fuck it, we just can't operate in this space?
Let me also add one thing for this. What is the point of kyousuke staying in FURIA if it's an international team?
No.
Why doesn't he just go to Falcons, play anchor over there? What's the point?
Oh, true. Or maybe go to Pain.
Yeah.
The beaches are nice in Brazil though, so
he will probably go to Pain or something like that, because he always said, right, he wants to stay in Brazil and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a like stand-up guy in general. Yeah. He's a really nice guy. He likes to play, he likes a family vibe, but like, what is the point? There's a family vibe. I can't expect molodoy to even have great English. When they got Junior in, that's English speak. That's the only language he's gonna speak anyway.
Maybe they need someone. No, maybe they need someone who can't speak great English. It's kind of like middling English for everyone. They're like, yeah, I get you. And the Junior, is all American. They can't understand a fucking word he's saying. I don't know, man. I genuinely don't know what the fuck's going on with that team. I don't think it's gonna. I think like apart from Yuri, the core Yuri, kyousuke, and Skulls as well. I think change is gonna definitely happen.
I don't want to stick on complexity too long. Also, Swani, do you need to leave soon, or are you good for like? Nice, okay. So I just want to give a shout out to complexity because it's like a huge result. They got some good scalps. didn't manage to get that second win on FaZe in the third place decider, but overall showed some really good stuff, especially from Halzerk and Grim. Like, I think maybe not statistically, but in terms of performance, where they finished, this is the best tournaments they've played, and they lived up to that peak of what we know they can do. Need to qualify for the major, and then we'll see where it takes them from there.
No, they just did.
They did?
They
There
just
you go.
did, yeah.
That's one.
Amazing. Great for them. So I don't know if you have any strong opinions, or if we want to talk about FaZe even for a bit. Because I think FaZe...
I know. FaZe is more interesting.
let's talk about FaZe, because I think Blay, you kind of mentioned, or you mentioned broky actually.
Yeah,
okay.
I do want to quickly touch on one quick point about complexity, though. I do, just the way they're playing right now seems like everyone's on the same page, which they didn't seem to have with, the previous lineup with Elite and everything, which is kind of crazy. And you can probably dig into that as much as you want to. But for me, Sexy has been honestly phenomenal. He's been around for quite a while, but considering it's his real debut, so to speak, in super S-tier events with some very tenured individuals, I think he can get lost in a conversation when you have Halzerk and Grim playing the way they did. But when you have this core trio of Grim, Sexy, and Halzerk delivering the way they did, and if they're able to continue doing that, I'm looking forward to this team. They look cool. They look dangerous.
Yeah.
But yeah, FaZe
have not won a tournament in 365 days. That's number one stat that I dug out. Second one was that broky's last event in the green on HLTV, so 105 rating or higher, was IEM Rio, and then nothing 6 months until Bucharest. And then in Bucharest, even though he was kind of having a good tournament, he had that super stinker in the semifinal against Falcons, especially the third map. But overall, the whole series wasn't good. And also then kind of came back in the third place decider. But his rating against top teams, top 5, top 10, is a big drop off as well. So his good ratings essentially just come from noob stomping teams. He is definitely a problem. Been flying a bit under the radar because everyone's broky, one tournament he's shit, then one tournament he's the MVP, and kind of back and forth. But that's really not the case. He was the MVP of the last tournament they won, but that was a year ago, right? That was Chengdu. And then there's a lot of other issues, but I think, what do you guys think? Is that the main issue, or is there something else? Swani, we can talk.
I feel like they're the complete opposite of complexity. I feel like Frozen and Rain are not on the same page at all. For example, I think they're stepping on each other's toes a lot. This whole role change and role overlap is not working out at all. You see how good Twist actually was as a role player for them, and everyone could play their role, and now it's you play this, I play star position here, I play rotation here, you know what I mean? It's a lot of back and forth, and if you never really can adjust to your role 100%, it's always going to be difficult for you. If you play 2 maps star role, then you play anchor, it's not going to be easy, and I think broky also suffers a bit from it. I think the biggest problem for me is this whole Frozen and Rain role debacle. I think that's where it all started to go down, because as an AWPer you also start to lose a bit of confidence. You feel like you need to make a difference maybe. I think that's more important for me.
And even for Rain, you could see how even recently, FaZe are just swapping around the CT positions to, a nuke, for example, right before Elite, if you were comfortable and all of that. And for Rain, look, the guy's still a beast in the server on his day, but he's been around for quite a while. He's an older guy, he's an older gentleman, right? So for him to really switch up such pivotal positions overall, while he's giving a lot, I do feel a lot of his struggles, he's not been quite able to fully adapt over there as well. I think Karrigan's actually, if there's one person I wouldn't really levy a lot of criticism on, it would be Karrigan. I think the calling hasn't necessarily been bad. I think you had some great comebacks coming out. The TaZ calling has been still good individually as well. For someone who's I think celebrating his 35th birthday right now, the guy's fucking Gandalf the White, okay, in Counter-Strike, by Counter-Strike terms. He's still delivering. I think he's still putting up a good job overall. But yes, I agree with Swani. I think the role clashes are definitely there. Despite that, it does feel like Frozen's the only consistent piece on his team right now. I don't think Elite has really been able to even come close to what we expect from him in the FaZe jersey. And for broky, but I don't think it's even about the role. I was listening to the last game they played. I think it was Connor and Lon was casting. At one point, Connor's like, "Yeah, broky another miss, and I don't want to keep harping on this." And it felt like that, right? It felt like you're just seeing him just missing these sitters. And if you're in FaZe Clan, a team built, as they've said, to win championships, you can't afford to have that. Sure, he has these pop-off moments. I'm not expecting him to have a 1v3 clutch every single time, which he pulls off, out of his ass. Just pure FaZe bullshit in that guy, in that op of his. But you're supposed to hit these fundamental, simple kills, right, with the AWP. Nothing crazy, just hit those shots. And I could count like almost every opper in every team in the top 10 right now who could hit the shots better than he can. And I feel that's a big problem. His floor has just dropped off. But I still feel like, it could change. It's fucking broky. I just feel like it's going to change at some point, which is why I'm still going to hold out some hope for FaZe until Austin.
Striker, anything to add?
No, I feel like we've been talking about why FaZe is shit for like 5 episodes now, and I don't even know what you to say about that.
Yeah,
to be honest.
I feel like Blair, what you said. If there's one player I don't want to criticize too much, it's Carrion. But everyone else takes like a part of the blame. Broky recently the most, but Elige maybe not that much at Bucharest. I think he played his role pretty good. Not like, he's not donk, but he did pretty well. For him and Frozen have been okay, but I agree, like Frozen Rain, like Dust 2 B side was looking horrible at points, like some basic stuff where it's like you can see that they're missing who is gonna call what we're doing. It's like everyone's doing their own thing instead of playing together. And it's like Twist for sure. I think he's one of the most like underrated role players. And unfortunately, he also didn't like that. He didn't like to be the underrated role player, so he wanted to be something else. And he's doing that to a decent degree, but losing that was something they never fully recovered from. I think Robs also did a lot, because you can see how him plugging into Vitality just worked, and how big of a hit it is for FaZe, who got, like, as I said, a pretty, just skill-wise, a pretty similar player, right? You would expect after last year where they were, but not on the same level, unfortunately. I do expect some changes soon. Let's just do a quick wrap up on the MRQ results and hot takes, hot off the presses. Fnatic eliminated. They just signed Jambo, allegedly for 600K. Biggest signing ever in Fnatic history. 1.5 weeks later, Krims is not playing with them. Borup is standing in 1-3 in the MRQ. Swani, I'm going to you for this one.
I mean, for me, it was already crazy when I saw like the CEO bragging about Jambo being like your biggest signing and the record signing. I was like, I don't think that's something you should brag about, Like, it was like, for me, he's like a mid-tier player who is not anything special, and you pay like 600K for him. I'm like, okay, you shouldn't be happy about bad negotiations, That's what I feel like. And
they are the deal. There we go.
Yeah, I don't think it's like
in this economy.
Like, yeah, it's not something that you should brag about. And I don't know, I think Fnatic has been scratching irrelevancy for like a year and a half. I wasn't really expecting anything else.
I think it's just a bit like, it's kind of crazy that they did this whole Krims thing, and I'm still kind of confused about why they did it this way. Like, even if you're replacing him in time for the major or even after the major or whatever, like, surely you just don't bring in a stand-in for like the most important tournament of the season for you, where like major qualification is on the line. You can recoup some of that 600K you just spent on Jambo, and all that stuff, and then you just decide to make another change after already having made two more, like earlier in the year or whatever. Like, it seems like it seems so short-sighted that I'm not sure if there's more to it that I just don't understand, or that has been said about what's happening with Krims or whatever like that just played a factor, because it doesn't make sense. Like, I understand if it's somebody better than Borup, but like Borup goes like 0.4 in the elimination game, or something like that. Then like who expected better, like, it's not even that I'm hating on the guy or anything like that, but it's just, he's not a guy you replace Krims with, who's been with fnatic for eight years or whatever it is now, like a legacy player, and you just kick him before the major qualifier. I don't get it. I don't understand what happened.
I think he had some personal issues. That's why he couldn't play or something. But I agree with you. Like Borp was the most. There are a lot of people around who just picked up, just slotted it and made him play, right? And Borp out of the blue, a name I haven't heard in quite a while, which is insane. But look, honestly, God, I'm done shitting on Fnatic. I'm fucking bored of it. They've just been terrible forever. They're never going to come back. It was just magical. They had a JW, that lineup, the Olaf Crims, that lineup, and it's just been downhill and fucking downhill.
I know Striker is fairly high on the core of this team. And I'm not like against it. I think like Fear, upcoming IGL, Jambo has some potential for sure. I think I agree with Swani 100%. Like bragging about it, completely wrong move, completely disconnected from reality. And why people dislike you is like you used to be so good, had some so great players, achievements, everything. Just left it to kind of rot away. Then remembered you have a CS team. And started doing something in the last year, like signing Blame F, for what Fnatic are, great signing, picking up Mattis, like a promising player. Now, okay, we're investing in Jambo. Okay, but you don't need to brag about, because that's not something to brag about, because it's like, just shows how you left, and how much you left this team to like just wither away. And now you need to do like desperate changes and overpay essentially for a player that, it's really pretty good, could be really good, but it's not. And then you're like, okay, now we're going into this major qualifier, even though the change happens, in my opinion, too close to the major qualifier to get anything close to like max potential from this opera that is your record signing. And then whatever happens to Krims, they said personal issues, but also I feel like the messaging around it has been so weird. And it's like, we'll see how we want to integrate him in the future. It seems like it's done for Krims on Fnatic, right? So why didn't you, this is why people are upset. Why didn't you invest in a replacement for Krims, who was for the last year just like a serviceable player on the server, filling a hole, but not really bringing anything? Why hasn't that been something you adjusted already, it is what it is. Moving on. We had I don't even know what to say about this, but a Chinese team called DogEvil, very funny name. Fucking DogEvil got disqualified for a player having a ban on a platform, like a third-party platform from 7 years ago, when a back ban expires after 5 years.
But that's not the reason, though. They didn't have a sub or a coach listed, so they could not
That's also pretty unbelievable, yeah.
Which is crazy. But no, so I think the platform was B5. That's a platform that they're doing the qualifiers on. And
so he's actively banned on the platform that the qualifier is happening on.
Yeah. That's an old account, and he's been playing with a new account. But he signed up for the event with his old account, which had a back ban, which is fucking insane.
Not a back ban,
but the thing is, he could have still played. It's just that because Valve said 5 years back ban. After that, you can play, right?
Yeah.
So it's been 7 years. He could have played. It just didn't have a fucking sub, which is insane. I don't know, man. It doesn't make sense. It's just Asian CS moment. But we have Linvision, Rare Adam, and Tyloo. Linvision coming on top. I think that was, I think a little unexpected. G popped off, but still Linvision getting the win. And now we have Tyloo versus Rare Adam, which is Rare Adam is the old Tyloo guys going up against Tyloo, which are the old Rare Adam guys, which is fucking hilarious. It's got a history going back like fucking 7 years. I live for this shit. I'm going to sit down, gonna grab a beer, gonna watch this game, gonna lose my fucking mind. But it's going to be great. But I do wish Tyloo actually get that win, because I feel like they have the highest. I think they're the second best team in Asia right now. I know just the one event we saw, but I feel like potential-wise, they're the second best team in Asia right now behind the Mongolz.
Yeah, EPL was pretty good for them.
I mean, Rare Adam also just had a pretty good result, so it's kind of insane, that the only one of them can go through. But I mean, that's the major, and they even have the 2 spots. So,
any other teams from the MRQ that are worthy of talking? I guess Swani, you're not here. Yeah, that's a good pick. What did you make of Big not qualifying?
I don't know, I think unfortunately it's kind of expected, because the pickups didn't really work out. Like QB and Type so far at best a side grade to like Susan and whoever else they replace. So I think, like, unfortunately in Germany we have the same issue. Like, there's just no talent upcoming. The best ones are obviously in M80, like Slex and Sin, but they somehow got rid of Sin after he was in-game leading for like one event where he took over from Tabson and he didn't do so well, and they instantly kind of removed it from him and got rid of him, which I don't know. It's funny for me, but I think like Big is going in the completely wrong direction as well, because they changed everything but the IGL, and at some point, like, maybe you have to call for another IGL and actually trust him.
Yeah, that feels like the big way is like they bring in a new talent and it's like, oh, you don't know how we play exactly after 3 days. You're a fucking idiot. What are you doing? That's how it feels from the outside, especially like in the Gob era when he was coaching. It felt him and Tabson felt like they would just like ruin you instantly if you did a mistake. Kind of like Electronic did to Icy and Flamus at Bucharest. Bro, that guy destroyed Flamus is destroyed. He's like a shell of a human being.
He's just passionate, Prof. It's all right. No, but the funny thing with the big thing, I agree with you. It's also like, hey, you're joining one of the most notoriously, tactical teams with so much of prep work and so much of like history and how they work as a team. And we can't figure the shit out in a couple of weeks. Boom, you're out. Which, yeah, I guess just a big way, man. Is what it is.
Yeah, that's
what are your thoughts on the potential of ENCE and Glaive going up against Astralis tomorrow? Holy shitteroonie.
Didn't they play already?
No, ENCE are going to play.
It doesn't matter. It's the decider game, so the rematch can happen.
Yeah, they played the best of one. They played the best of one. Astralis destroyed them on train. But that would be pretty cool, honestly. That would be pretty cool.
Storyline.
That's a good storyline.
Imagine being Glaive, man. Like, it's gotta be weird.
Yeah, ENCE bait and then winner against Astralis. I mean, yeah, that's whoever comes through that is going to be a decent team.
Astralis just have to win that game, man. Like, surely.
I mean, pretty much the future of this organization is on the line. I'm pretty sure if they don't make it.
It's been floating. It's been floating around for a long time. Yeah, that they kept cutting and cutting because they kept not making majors.
Oh, there we go.
That's rough. Gamer Legion didn't make it.
That's the one that feels super sad, to be honest, because like I remember it kind of all spirals from that change of the like VRS model where they didn't include tournaments ongoing and stuff, and they were. Like, they played the wrong game at just the wrong time, and they just fell out of the invite spots for Lisbon. They didn't end up playing Lisbon. Now they ended up how many, like that, not that far away from being invited straight as a top 10 team. I can't really say that they've been worse than Virtus Pro, for example, or in the season. Just Virtus Pro maybe played a little bit more and got that extra opportunity, to have one more deep run. So it just feels bad because of them being thrown into the online deep end when they've actually performed pretty solidly on online, against pretty good teams. So even if, I understand that it's like, okay, they didn't turn up on the day or whatever. It's just it just feels bad anyway.
Have we had I don't know, like in the past, has Chad had a rant about the best ones in the for the groups for the Swiss system for the EU stage?
It's all the same for the major and all of that stuff, right? Like, so unless it gets fixed in the major, I don't think it's going to get fixed for the qualifier.
But here's the most egregious part about all this. Almost every region has a different format, right? The Asian and Australia, they have double elim bracket. For NA, it's kind of like two groups. Again, best of threes throughout, and then a single elim. EU, the most competitive region, has just the best one fucking openers. Here's my fucking problem with that. I can kind of understand, even though I completely disagree. I can kind of understand why you have best of ones for the opening stage in a LAN, right? Because you have lesser days, you have a lot of turnaround time for teams and everything.
You need a lot of setups as
a lot of hotel
rooms.
But PGL, Blast, and all these guys recently they've been in the best of three Swiss systems in a pretty reasonable amount of time as well. 2-week events, right? So they've done it on LAN. This is fucking online. There is no fucking turnaround time. There is no setup. But just make it best of three, because every other qualifier for the fucking major has the best of three. So to go against the argument about, fine, the major is still sticking the Swiss system best of one, but if you change the format, then suddenly magically best of three is fine. But for the online part of EU, because it's Swiss system, which is the only common thing is the format. So now it has to be best of one. That's absolute bullshit. Like I just don't get this. I'm not going to say that's the reason the Game of Legend didn't make it, but you can see these crazy upsets taking place because of this. And I think that's just, especially now when we have enough data with CS2, when we've evolved a lot of these formats over time, when Valve have been actually being really hands-on with the VRs and everything, it is mind-boggling they haven't fucking changed this yet. That's just crazy. And I'm done.
I agree. We got a Blair rant instead of a Chad rant. I agree. Like I think, especially now that I did Bucharest and I was like watching every like map intently, you're like, oh, how did this team win this game? And like sometimes it's just, they won the few right rounds for the economy to be like so skewed that the other team had like 2.5 rounds to do something, and one of them, the gamble was not correct, and that's it. That's a map. That's a map done. And I feel like how important it is. Best of ones should not be a thing. I just don't think they should be a thing, and I also think even for the LAN part of the major, I also think that's bullshit and like shouldn't happen. I'm pretty sure I even brought this up to Valve when we spoke to them in Shanghai. It's a stupid ass format. How is the only tournament in the circuit that has best of ones the major? Literally no one else has best of ones on LAN. No one has best of ones. Like maybe like a Yala Compass group stage that's trying to be different, Which is a round robin, by the way. So I can kind of see it. It's fine. It's fine. Like if you're really trying to be different, but like all the best tournaments, most competitive tournaments are fully best of 3 and like best of 5 final, and we don't have that for the major. It's just feels stupid, honestly.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
That's it for me. Ended off on a rant.
I do. Yeah, I think just looking at some of the other MRQs, I think FlyQuest are definitely going to make it. Big surprise there. That's cool.
It would be cool if Semper Fi made it somehow. I don't know. Would be kind of funny.
Farm in Australia, nowhere else.
I don't know if you saw Semper Fi won some like a local LAN. FlyQuest wasn't playing there. They won a local LAN.
Defrag invitation.
Defrag, and their manager, owner, whatever is Ben Savage, father.
Is Ben the owner?
Ben the legend.
Okay.
I don't know what he is, but he's like deeply involved in this org for sure. And Savage is on the team, and they have these 2 Latvians, so they're like doing stuff. And I follow one of them on Instagram, and so they won this event. Next thing you know, like Instagram stories in a limo. They got a fucking limo. They're going to like some house. They're partying. Everything's popping off. It's vibes. They also were after that the highest ranked team in Australia. So good thing to celebrate. Anyway, it looked vibes. Just based on that, I want them to do well.
Just bring back 2017 esports after parties. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
Prof's a little scared. Prof's a little scared. But
I feel like there's probably a lot of bad things that happen on them, unfortunately, as always. But it is what it is. Twitch used to throw good parties back in the day.
Once upon a time.
Any closing thoughts, Swani? Thank you for coming on.
Oh, good, thank you. I just want to say also one thing, because when I see all this hate on Twitter, also for pets and stuff, I think people need to chill out as well, because they are humans as well, and like sending death threats and saying, what the fuck are you doing? And I just would like for people to be a bit more human, because obviously people are making mistakes. Maybe it was a mistake, but maybe it was also inevitable, like he can only do so much. And I would like for people also to understand that G2 as an org, like it's a good org, like they treated me good as well. We just had some disagreements, or maybe some stuff that I didn't agree, but they wanted to do different. So I feel like people really need to understand that, they're humans, mistakes are happening, but I don't think they could have held m0NESY or NiKo, no matter what they did. So for people to saying, like really, really bad stuff towards them, I think you need to look behind yourself as well. And they are humans, and it's not nice for them as well. They don't like to be in a situation like they're not doing this on purpose, right? Like it's a shit show for them as well. So please also be a bit considerate when you go on the internet and type on your keyboard, because it affects other people. And
and things could be worse. You could be an Astralis fan.
Yeah. Or talking about management, at least they didn't walk for free like Robson Twist dude from FaZe, So there's worse things to do for sure.
Yeah.
Blay?
Nothing much, man. Like, I don't want to ruin that. That was very that's a nice sentiment from Swani. That was nice. Just be kind to each other and be nice. Don't be an asshole.
Don't be an asshole. Let's
Don't be an asshole.
And end on those wise words. Thanks for watching HLTV Confirmed. Thanks for just listening to me host and do my best in Chad's absence. Once again, he will be with us, I presume, next week after Melbourne when he's back in Europe. Enjoy Melbourne. We didn't really talk about it, but you know who the big teams are. You know who the favorites are. We'll see what happens and watch m0NESY's debut. He did get the visa, and yeah, tune in for more HLTV Confirmed. Follow us on Spotify, Twitter, and on all the apps. Thank you to Anthros and SkinPlace for supporting the show, making it possible, and see you next week.
Sell in-game items at the best prices in just a couple of clicks. We are the biggest instant sell service for in-game items like Counter-Strike 2, Dota 2, and Rust. Easy selling process and instant withdrawal of funds to the most popular payment methods. More than 140,000 deals and 50,000 active sellers every month. Use promo code HLTV5 and get a 5% bonus on the sale of your skins. SkinPlace. Sell items now.
It was more than a game. It was everything. Every single emotion on display. Not a moment missed. This was CSGO through the lens.